12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. It's a Stand on Business Wheels Off Wednesday edition. He is Ari Timken on social at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. I'm James Westling on social at James Westling. T-Chains, Taman Turner on the controls on the audio side. We've got Anthony Smith behind the scenes on the video side. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports will join us here in about 15 minutes. We'll only have him for about 10, so we'll get right to it. Questions still lingering when it comes to Brendan Sorsby, the Texas Tech quarterback, and his eligibility status. What are the next steps in the process? Will this end in court? And did Cincinnati know? Ross Dellinger will try and answer all of those for us before we power rank, as we do each and every Wednesday, our power rankings post-Sorsby, top 5 post-spring Big 12 football teams. It's also National Superhero Day. Ari Timken rocking the Jayhawk blue today.
Stoked today. Stoked. Big day today.
Tyron Stokes, the number 1 player in the country, commits to Kansas. But what else you got going on? You got a big day today.
Yeah, it's the second straight year that Bill Self has been able to nab the top-rated recruit in the country in the high school ranks, and did it despite Kansas being an Adidas school and him being a Nike athlete. Pretty impressive addition, and at some point the show will have to evaluate where Kansas now sits from a 2027 roster standpoint, but obviously a huge get for Kansas and for the Big 12.
So how do you feel now about KU's roster or their offseason? Because there was a lot made about, well, Kansas has been quiet. Kansas has only added a couple of guys in the portal. All these guys transferring out for the 3rd year in a row. So after landing the number 1 player in the country, where do you sit with KU and just an evaluation of their offseason?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what Stokes does, he's 6'7", he's 230 pounds. Like, he gets into the lane and cannot be stopped. He's a bowling ball. A bull in a china shop, if you will. So, I mean, I think, Kansas needs to surround him with good shooting. And good shooting is something that has been very difficult for Kansas really over the last few years, where they've ranked, in the bottom seemingly in offensive efficiency and three-point shooting. I think Cole Rosario coming back could help the three-point shooting. They added a freshman from last year at Toledo that in Leroy Blyden that shot 40% from 3. So I think Talon Kinney can light it up from 3. So if they're going to add anything else to the portal, it's got to be some pure shooting.
He's 6'7", 230 pounds. He has a 7 feet long, even wingspan. He's powerful. He's explosively athletic. His high school team went 29-1. He averaged 31 points per game and scored 63 in a game against West Seattle this past season. But I think the fact that KU's an Adidas school, he signed a multi-year NIL deal with Nike. And so Bill Self, this may have been his most impressive recruitment of any player, because now you've got this added layer that he has to overcome. Like, it's one more obstacle that KU outbids or out-recruits 2 of Nike's biggest schools to land him. That says a lot about Bill Self and just how long he's been on this kid, what he's building around this kid.
And I think, from what I've gathered, the only reason that Kentucky and Oregon were even in the conversation was strictly because of Nike. So, it goes to show, I think, that sometimes the fit from a school standpoint doesn't exactly align, and good for Stokes for not making that part of his decision-making. It's funny because, there's some interesting questions about Stokes. He can be abrasive. Jamal Crawford, the former NBA Sixth Man of the Year, a guy that played for the league for 20 years in the league, who went to Rainier Beach High School, which is where Tyron Stokes spent his last year, was an assistant coach in that team, and there was a moment this past season that caught he and Tyron Stokes yelling at each other. Stokes lost his composure in that moment. There's been some other kind of lost composure moments. But, to me, these are indicative of the type of mentality that Kansas, I think, wanted Darren Peterson to have. they're not similar in any way. And I think the ways in which they're not similar are what will attract Kansas fans to Tyron Stokes. For a Kansas fan who I think wants to sink their teeth, embrace somebody over these last 2 years like this, I think this to me is going to represent a totally different type of person and player for Kansas than Peterson last year. Not to always compare them, but they were back-to-back number one recruits. I think Kansas fans are going to love Tyron Stokes. I think he's going to bring a aggression and a mentality and an edge that they lacked last year, and that Kansas fans are looking for a player like him to embrace, and so I think he will oblige in that way.
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
He's a dog. And
he cares too much.
When you watch Darren Peterson miss 11 of KU's first 27 games, play less than 25 minutes in 7 of his 16 appearances.
Not a dog.
And then Bill Self's quote, one of his quotes from this season, I think they're taking away some of their own personal aggressiveness when he's out there, talking about the players around him. And I think that would apply to Peterson as well. This is the polar opposite. Like, this is a guy that now you have to manage his emotions and maybe his outbursts, if you want to call it that, because he cares so much. And then the recruitment stems back to, so the point guard that committed, Talon Kinney, who's also a 5-star, top 10 player, him and Stokes are really close friends. They played together like in middle school and early high school on the AAU circuit and summer ball. And so you've got that built-in like pair, that relationship right there that are kind of reunited, two high-level freshmen that I think Peterson didn't have that. Like, it didn't feel like to me Peterson had, for lack of a better term, his best any friends on the team, right? Like, when he was out there, it kind of felt like he was a little bit of an outlier, at least just in terms of body language and things like that. Stokes is going to be the total opposite.
Yeah, and I also, when I look at Kinney, Stokes, and Blyden, I think they've got 3 guys that can handle the basketball. And, that's been something that's been difficult for them in terms of, having ball handlers and players that can initiate their offense. I also, Kinney is a monster rebounder, and between he and Dawes, I expect Kansas to be a much improved rebounding team. I've seen a lot of, they're still not a very good roster, and let's see when it's all said and done with the transfer portal. But I think this roster is significantly better right now than it was last year, given how the situation with Darren Peterson played out.
And I would even say, the role players outside of the number one player in the country, like Leroy Blyden, Talon Kinney, Dawes, who maybe we have some Big 12 bias because we've seen him so much, and then having Rosario coming back, Mbia coming back. Our guys over at Shooty Hoops and ShootyHoops.com, who track all the portal stuff and deep dive roster evaluations, they had Kansas at 15th in the Big 12 prior to this signing. Now they've skyrocketed into the top 4 in terms of roster talent, and they're not done yet. And the teams that are 1 through 3 have pretty much completely built their rosters and don't have any more spots left.
Also assuming that Kansas is now number 1 in the recruiting class with this edition. You mentioned Talon Kinney. We know about Tyron Stokes. They also had Luke Barnett, who is a 4-star from Mater Dei High School, 6'4" shooting guard, who Bill Self called the best pure shooter that he's recruited since Grady Dick. And not even to mention Davion Adkins and Trent Perry. So, yeah, they've got quite the class coming in. Oh, also Christian Reeves transferred in as well, who will be a 7'1" redshirt senior center for them. So, but this recruiting class is dynamic for Kansas. Are they number 1?
Number 2 currently. Only Arkansas is 1 spot higher, and it is super close. I mean, KU's at a 69.25. Arkansas is a 69.3. Right, so I mean they are nip and tuck, and then there's a much bigger gap between 3 and 4, which, by the way, are Duke number 3, Michigan number 4. I mean, Kansas, even with Darren Peterson last year, had the 16th best recruiting class in the country. Okay, so let's put that into perspective. You're number 16 with Peterson. Kansas now, with roster spots available, number 2 in the country. I mean, this is one of the best recruiting classes we've ever seen in the Big 12. And it's back-to-back years now that for the league, the number one prospect in the country, in America, is playing in this conference. Last year, depending upon the recruiting service, it was either Darren Peterson or A.J. DeBonsa. DeBonsa's leading the nation in scoring in his rookie campaign, 26 points per game, broke Kevin Durant's record for the most points by a freshman in Big 12 tournament history when he had that 40-burger. And now you add Stokes. Like, that's back-to-back years where you've had the number one player, back-to-back years where you've had a team ranked in the top 5 in the national recruiting rankings. Last year it was Houston. This year it's Kansas. What does that say about the league and the brand for basketball?
Right. I mean, huge addition there. And it's not, Caleb Holt is a 5-star shooting guard from Prolific Prep that ends up at Arizona. Dylan Mingo, I don't know, we talked enough about him yesterday, from Long Island Lutheran, as a 5-star point guard who committed to Baylor after his brother committed to Baylor in the transfer portal. So, he's the number 6 player in this class. Bruce Branch, the number 9 player from Prolific Prep, who played with Holt at Prolific Prep. He is going to BYU. Bruce Branch, the number 9 player in this class. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 10.
Yep, 4 of the top 10, and that is courtesy of Rivals. So 24/7 composite, 4 of the top 8 players in the country will be in the Big 12. That might be better than last year. Even with DeBonsa and Peterson, Kingston Flemings was just outside the top 10. Koa Pete was barely in the top 10. Braden Burries was just outside the top 10. Stokes number 1, Holt number 3, Bruce Branch number 6, and Dylan Mingo, which brilliant move by Scott Drew down in Waco. Glad you brought that up. He's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers, bringing in his brother from Penn State, who is also a really nice player. That's turns out to be a package deal. This is the highest-rated Baylor recruit since VJ Edgecombe, and the second highest in program history. So 4 of the top 8, the Big 12 is crushing it once again. And it took a while. Like, these are kind of some late signees. Of the guys that were available in the top 10, top 15, they're all signing with Big 12 schools.
Meanwhile, I'm knee-deep in Division II FCS quarterbacks to see who the Texas Tech Red Raiders might be able to add here.
Can they find the next Trinidad Chambliss? That's what they're looking
for. The
for.
short answer is no, but there's a longer answer. The number 1 FCS quarterback from last year, by the way, is Bo Brungard, the quarterback for Youngstown State. He won the 2025 Walter Payton Award. Had 3,200 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, ran for 1,500 yards and 27 touchdowns. So 52 touchdowns and 6,000 all-purpose yards through the air and on the ground. But he decided to stay at Youngstown State. He had overtures, obviously, to move up, but said his father played quarterback at Youngstown State and won 2 national titles, so he's returning for his senior season. There's also Taron Dickens from Western Carolina, but he transferred to North Carolina. Cole Payton from North Dakota State was drafted. Potentially DJ Williams from Southern Illinois. See, I'm knee-deep in FCS quarterbacks right now. Knee-deep.
So the transfer portal is still open for
the FCS.
The FCS and Division II. Over 400 FCS players have already entered the portal. So does Texas Tech go that route? You can pick up the phone, you can call an FCS quarterback and make him your guy, essentially, for next year, or do you stick with the quarterbacks that you have in that room?
No, I think you've got to be aggressive. If you felt like you needed to be aggressive at the quarterback position to get Sorsby, then what's changed since then that would lead you to have confidence in the guys that you have? Maybe the prognosis in terms of the timeline for a return on Will Hammond has changed things. Maybe that's the case. But, look, you've got to expect that the investment you've made in Sorsby is refundable. And now I think you've got to be aggressive in exercising whatever options you have to improve the quarterback position. Maybe you don't bring in a guy, from the D2 level FCS, especially to start day one, but at least bring in somebody else to compete for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously tough without a spring football, though.
Is there a Trinidad Chambliss on the market for Texas Tech? Ross Dellinger, the senior writer for Yahoo Sports, who's all over the Sorsby stuff, will join us coming up after the break to answer those questions and many more. This is Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo. We are power ranking the post-Sorsby top 5 Big 12 football teams, what our list would look like for this upcoming season as of now. We will do that in about 20 minutes. Also later on the program, Kat Osterman, ESPN analyst and general manager of the Texas Volts, will join us. And then our Big 12 top 5 players at each position series powered by Modelo continues today with defensive ends. A lot of fresh faces at that position in the Big 12 with so many guys off to the NFL. The latest on the Brendan Sorsby case, Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports will join us here in just a moment. But I think the latest bombshell, if you will, is that now Cincinnati, unfortunately, has entered the chat because the USA Today is reporting that the Cincinnati Athletic Department was alerted last August that Brendan Sorsby, their quarterback, was gambling prior to the start of the 2025 season. Those are two people with direct knowledge of the situation. They told USA Today Sports yesterday. And then the other kind of element of this, the Big 12, so the Big 12 uses this app that every student athlete has to download. And it's a compliance-driven app that every student athlete in the league must download on their phone. And what that app does is it notifies universities when athletes attempt to sign up for betting platforms or place any type of wager. So that's just one more element in the whole, how did this happen? Who was the whistleblower, which we still don't know? How did he think that he was maybe going to get away with it? In this whole picture that I can't wait for Ross to clear up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is such a significant story when you consider Texas Tech's offseason and how big of a story it's been. And, I think everything that I've read and seen since leads me to believe that there's very little hope that Brendan Sorsby will be eligible for the upcoming season. I don't want to completely diminish, I don't want to say it's 0%, but, man, it feels like I'm not really sure what type of wriggle room they could possibly have beyond just fighting back against the NCAA. And maybe that's the plan for Tech. We'll have to see. But just in trying to look and figure out what is next in terms of, where Texas Tech goes from here, there's a large gaping hole seemingly at the quarterback position. And you just spent an entire spring, just ended a week and a half ago with Brendan Sorsby under center.
Having a monster spring game. He threw 4 touchdowns. He had the game winner, if you will, for his squad in that scrimmage to Micah Hudson. The wide receiver room is as deep and talented as it's ever been. The offensive line is massive, major upgrade there. So can Texas Tech survive until Will Hammond enters the fold? But then what type of quarterback is Will Hammond? Now, he's very close, or maybe already has started throwing very casually, just playing catch back and forth as he tries to get into football shape. But the NCAA policy, just in terms of the chances that Sorsby plays again, the policy is quite clear, and Ross outlines this. Players playing in and influencing their own games, or knowingly providing information to influence their games, or, and here's the big one, wagering on their own games or on sports at their own schools are permanently banned. Very cut and dry. There's not really a gray area there. And that even dates back to 2022 with Hunter Deckers. Bullet point number 2, players wagering on their own sport, even if at another school, will lose as much as 50% of a season of eligibility. And then number 3, those betting on pro sports face penalties based on how much money they bet, 10% loss of the season for more than $200, 30% loss for more than $500, potential permanent ban for more than $800. So the problem with the Sorsby saga is that he qualifies for all 3 of these bullet points.
Yeah, it's I would say the only recourse the Tech has is to fight this, right? If the NCAA rules him ineligible, Texas Tech can, I guess, in court sue them and say, well, your rules are stupid. I mean, not exactly in that verbiage, but you know what I mean? In this day and age, suing the NCAA against their rules has worked. And maybe you get an injunction that allows him to play, but at that point, like, does that lead to the fracturing of the NCAA as the governing body here? Because basically what you're saying is, hey, you've got these rules, but we don't think they apply to us. So, I mean, that to me seems like the only path forward here, obviously depending on whatever the NCAA decides and whenever they decide it.
And the NCAA has already shown that, like, there's not really any wiggle room. So they just announced yesterday that 2 former Fordham men's basketball players, they've been ruled permanently ineligible for their betting activity. Now, this was connected to a big federal probe back in 2025. The NCAA says that a bettor reached out to the players under the guise of being an NIL agent. That's how they got connected to these Fordham basketball players. Now, Sorsby's a different situation because he's just doing it on his phone, but the bottom line is the NCAA, like, they've been very clear about, you bet on sports, you're done. Still waiting on Ross Dellinger to join us.
I don't think he's going to join us.
I don't think he's going to join us either.
Should we talk about the expansion of the NCAA tournament, which is something else I was going to ask Ross about?
It's the other thing that Ross had. So it sounds like this is a done deal. The NCAA is expected to finalize expansion of the men's and women's tournaments to 76 teams. This could be finalized within the next month. It's expanding. It's here.
Yeah, so basically how this will work in practice is the new opening round, quote unquote, which we've formerly seen as the first 4, will now feature 24 teams playing 12 games over Tuesday and Wednesday of the first week at 2 sites, Dayton and then a second location yet to be determined. The 12 games are expected to be split roughly 6 between lower-seeded automatic qualifiers and 6 between at-large teams. Basically, the 12 winners advance to join an awaiting 52-team bracket. Under this design, 8 teams are extracted from the main bracket plus 8 new at-large additions from expansion, netting the plus 8 to reach 76.
Old friend alert, Ross Dellinger, the senior writer for Yahoo Sports, is on the horn with us now to break down the NCAA tournament expansion, but also Brendan Sorsby and the whole situation. And Ross, you noted that there's still a lot of questions lingering when it comes to Sorsby, so good morning, and can you just fill us in on the latest?
Yeah, well, there certainly is a ton of questions. I think everybody's sort of asking what happens now, and I think what happens is the NCAA has to finish its investigation. It presented evidence to Texas Tech about 2 weeks ago or so. Enough data to convince them that Brendan, needed to go into treatment. And I think Brendan acknowledged the issues that had happened as well. So, the NCAA's got to finish the investigation, which could entail talking to Brendan, so they'll have to wait till he's sort of done with treatment. Not sure when that will be, if that's days or weeks. I don't know. And then after the investigation, I'm going to assume, based on the fact that he bet on his own games, and the NCAA's got kind of a hard and fast rule on that the NCAA will recommend that he be deemed ineligible. And in the school, is the normal practice is the school would then just follow suit under NCAA rules and deem him ineligible. But then the school can file for reinstatement to reinstate him at least a portion of the season. And the NCAA, it's kind of an appeal, and the NCAA would have to decide if they're going to grant that appeal or not.
Could you see a situation in which the Texas Tech would push back on an ineligible ruling and fight this in court, get an injunction, as we've seen with players doing so in certain situations?
Definitely, yeah. I would, I'd kind of be surprised if this doesn't end up in court, because I don't know that the NCAA is going to grant any kind of reinstatement.
Right.
Since again, their rule is, there's a lot of precedent for their rule, and it's spelled out pretty clearly that if you bet on your games in any way, you're out. So it would be hard for me to see them reinstating him, and I think the next step is he, his lawyer, agent, and the school probably trying to decide either he's going to enter the NFL supplemental draft in June, or he's going to file for an injunction and hope a court, perhaps a local friendly court in Lubbock, will grant that injunction and stay the NCAA's ruling.
Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports is with us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are powered by Modelo. Ross, did Cincinnati, or is there evidence that Cincinnati knew about this, and if so, when or how far back?
I don't know if there's evidence, but there's certainly people around Texas Tech and close to Brendan Sorsby that suspect or very much believe that Cincinnati did know as early as last fall, and we haven't seen Cincinnati comment on the case at all. So, and we haven't seen any evidence, at least yet, that they knew. But there's certainly a belief from people around the school, Texas Tech, and around Brendan, who believe that they know. So we'll see kind of what unfolds there, because if Cincinnati did know and they didn't report it, there's obviously some repercussions there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's maybe a 1 + 1 = 2 sort of feeling, I think, from some that maybe Cincinnati had a role in this, but it would appear, based on what they might be dealing with, that would seem to not make much sense. But I guess my next question to you, Ross, would be what's the options here for Texas Tech in terms of the portal, in terms of the quarterback position? I mean, do you think they're set from a roster standpoint? Do you think there's other options with the portal not being open, but players being able to sign?
Well, there would have been an option for Texas Tech to go grab what they call a ghost transfer or a blind transfer, which is a player that doesn't enter the portal but transfers outside of the portal window. The problem with that is the NCAA recently created a rule that prohibits schools from doing that, and if they do that, a coach can be suspended for half of a season. Is the new sort of rule. So you can't take a transfer outside of the portal window, or risk a big fine in a half-season suspension for the coach. So that's pretty severe. I can't imagine Texas Tech doing that, testing that. Will it legally hold up in court, though? If they did go and do that and get a quarterback and the NCAA did suspend Joey McGuire a half a season, would they then file a legal challenge against that and get an injunction? I mean, maybe. But they're a little hamstrung right now. I mean, obviously they have Will Hammond. I know that he started throwing a little bit, but obviously, look, let's be honest. If Texas Tech thought Will Hammond was the answer, they probably wouldn't have spent $5 million on Brendan Sorsby. So I think there certainly is that they're in a bind for sure.
Ross, if these student athletes are downloading essentially a protection app to notify the Big 12 or the NCAA that they've signed up for betting accounts, if that's how this whole thing works, and Sorsby was betting on games as far back as like 2022, essentially my question is, like, what took so long?
Well, I think, well, first of all, for these things to happen, it normally does take some kind of tip from somebody, from another school or a person, and obviously there were plenty of people who probably knew about this that kind of covered it up until now. You can probably put together the pieces of why it came out now. I think Texas Tech is, in a legal fight with Cincinnati over the buyout. And on the same day that all this came out, Brendan Sorsby's attorneys filed for a motion to dismiss the case over the $1 million buyout that Cincinnati says he owes. So a lot of people certainly point the finger at Cincinnati. as being sort of the spark that sort of set the fire here. Again, we don't know that for sure, but that's certainly what's being suspected.
All right, on the 76 team NCAA tournament, the expansion. So it sounds like with the details here, there's like sort of a side tournament before the real tournament. Here's my question to you. One of the largest draws of the NCAA tournament is filling out a bracket. What in God's name is this going to do to that?
Yeah, well, it'll be like the first four. People don't consider the first four a lot of times part of their bracket. They don't fill it out. Now you'll have the first 12. So you have 8 more games, and you'll have 16 more teams added to what they're going to call the opening round. And this has been done for a while. I think back in October, I reported about how the agreement was close to being reached, and here's and reported about the details of the format. And they just wanted to delay everything until after the Final Four, but this was sort of a long time coming. The real next step in finalizing all of this, I know it was sort of, it was sort of made to believe in some of the reports yesterday that it was finalized or whatever. The basketball committees, the women's basketball, the men's basketball committees under the NCAA umbrella, they have to approve it. They haven't even seen the agreement yet. So I think there was a little getting out ahead of it, a little too far probably yesterday in some people's reporting. But look, this is gonna happen. Like, they're gonna end up probably approving this, and I reported that back in 3 weeks ago during the Final Four that this was gonna happen, that everybody was sort of on board, but they haven't even seen the agreement yet. And once they see the agreement and the distribution and the money, it'll be interesting what happens, because there's a lot of people in the men's basketball and women's basketball committees that aren't from the power leagues, which the power leagues have been driving a lot of this expansion. So, they might have some issues with some of this, and the agreement might have to get tweaked. Maybe the format too, who knows? But the idea right now, and it's been the case for 6 months now, is that you'll have this first 12 games. And that'll be the new opening round. It'll be played at 2 different sites. Dayton will be one, and then they'll have probably a more of a West Coast site is kind of the idea.
And Ross, this will be implemented for this upcoming season. Is that right?
That's the plan. Yes, that it'll start next March.
Wow, man, wild. Awesome stuff, Ross. Appreciate your coverage, man, on the Sorsby stuff. Great work, and thanks for your time. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, guys. Thanks.
Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, all over the Sorsby stuff in the NCAA tournament, expanding to 76 for this upcoming season. It is here, and we're all over it. We are also all over power rankings because it's a Wednesday. Our post-Sorsby top 5 Big 12 football teams coming up next. He's Ariam James. This is Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn, powered by Modelo and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Ball is out. That whole thing just exploded. And Romello Height recovers it.
First down. Jackson run down from behind. Romello Height is another one. Call it the dog position. Well, he is a dog.
Up here. Here comes Height. Romello Height breaks it down. Ball is free. It's a scoop and score for Curry.
Talk about prime-time players, make prime-time plays.
First down with Ruin in motion. Daniels, Height is behind him, and he smoked him.
And look at the speed of which he gets to the quarterback. You have no chance.
Back in Texas. Look out here. You wanted them to be aggressive, but there's only so much you can do, and Romello Height is knocking on your door.
back here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. You can catch the All-State Across the Conference show tonight. It airs Wednesdays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, new to the Big 12 Radio channel with this man right here, Ari Timken. Also Sydney Staples. They interview players and coaches from all the Big 12 sports outside of football and men's basketball. So catch it tonight. And you guys were talking BYU baseball?
Yeah, BYU baseball coach Trent Pratt is our guest on today's show. They've had a surprising season this year and play in arguably the best baseball stadium in terms of aesthetics in college baseball.
That it is. Like, it goes viral every spring for that backdrop. It is amazing. All right, power rankings are post-Sorsby, top 5 Big 12 football, post-Sorsby, post-spring. Where do we have Texas Tech? Ari, you have the floor. Who is your number 5 Big 12 school?
I love that you're calling it post-Sorsby. If we're just calling it post-spring, I think the Sorsby news might indicate the post-Sorsby-ness of it, but I digress. I'm going to start number 5 with Utah. I think the Utes are number 5 on my list now. Look, Devin Dampier, his year-over-year improvements were pretty significant. His completion percentage went up dramatically. He went from 57% to 63%. He also went from 12 touchdowns and 12 picks to 19 touchdowns, rather 24 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Plus, he had 10 rushing scores. So, some of the questions we had about Dampier heading into last season were erased following this season. I think with Wayshawn Parker back, it's a guy that pushed for 1,000 yards rushing last year as a legit dual threat in terms of the pass and the run. And then, look, I think Utah, their schedule, to me, is fairly easy. They avoid Texas Tech. They play at Iowa State, Kansas, at Colorado. Now, they do play Houston, but at Cincinnati, at Arizona, and at TCU late could be difficult. But to me, they have one of the easier schedules of these teams at the top of the Big 12. Give me Utah number 5.
I like it. Yeah, my number 4 and number 5 did not move from our post-spring rankings that we did last week. Still have a sleeper pick at number 5. I'm going with Kansas State. Colin Klein is home. Avery Johnson entering essentially what is, you could argue, his 4th year as the starter. Joe Jackson back at running back. And then the more I deep dive their defense, and projected depth charts are all over the internet now that these rosters are pretty much set, I think K-State's defense is going to be much better than people think, led by Wendell Gregory, the Big 12 reigning newcomer of the year on the defensive side of the football. So 12 of K-State's 15 spring practices were in full pads. Like, Colin Klein is very much old school. I think they're going to be more physical. I've got K-State at number 5.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me is Arizona. With Noah Fafita back and what they've added in the portal wide receiver, this is going to be the best passing offense in the Big 12. I mean, they add Jordan Ross from Colorado State, Rodney Gallagher from West Virginia, and DJ Jordan from USC, and that pairs them already with Trey Spivey, Chris Hunter, and Gio Richardson, who were 1,000 yards combined last year and 12 touchdowns. Plus, with Seth Dagey back for a second year and Fafita having the comfortability within that offense. While they do lose a ton in the secondary from last year, that was extremely disruptive. I think what they've done in the portal to, account for that was huge. Give me Arizona number 4.
Yeah, I love that pick. I struggled with where to put Arizona. So at number 4, I've got Arizona State. I look at no Sam Levitt last year, backup quarterback, losing Cam Skattebo to the NFL draft, Jordan Tyson out for half the year, and they still go 8-5. I love the 4 quarterbacks that are competing for the position, highlighted by Cutter Boley, the Kentucky transfer, 6'5", 220. I just think with Dillingham's ability to mold quarterbacks, and then they maybe have collectively more weapons in terms of running backs, receivers, tight ends than they had last year, because I think it was Tyson and then a big drop-off. This year they've added Amarion Miller, the most coveted portal receiver on the market. They add the kid, the Reed kid on the outside from Boston College, who will be probably a day 2 NFL draft pick next year. So I've got Arizona State at number 4.
Number 3.
This is where I have Texas Tech. Texas Tech at number 3. Look, I mean, even without Sorsby, I think this defense will make them contenders. Plus, the three-headed monster running back with Dickey, Jacoby Williams, and Quentin Joyner. There's a lot of things to like about this team, even without Sorsby in the mix. And obviously, that's not official, but based, again, on precedent and the rules, I find it hard to believe that we can expect Sorsby to be available. Obviously, it's going to depend on the situation with Will Howard. You know, how quickly can he get up to speed and be available? Will Hammond, how many times will I do that? What's the over-under on 100 over the course of the season? But, you know, I wonder if they'll have to have Kirk Francis or somebody else start from day one, which could be problematic for a team that, you know, has a difficult schedule from, you know, the totality of it. So, look, they have enough around them. What they did in the portal and defense, we're going to touch on that today. And as we power rank the top 5 players at each position, we've got pass rush today. They're going to have some guys on that list. So, like, they're going to be very, very good based on the talent they brought in. But I still have 2 teams right now that are higher than them based on the Sorsby news.
Yeah, I just hope that Will Howard isn't upset, then feels like the Steelers took advantage of him because they drafted a quarterback in this most recent draft. I also have Texas Tech at number 3. The earthquake that nobody saw coming. I mean, this one changed fast. And without Sorsby and your backup recovering from a torn ACL, and then your third stringer is a kid who lost his starting job at Tulsa, or a kid who's thrown 4 collegiate passes and is still super green and super young. The roster is still loaded outside of that, but like offensively, I think I was most excited about all of the weapons that Sorsby was going to have in the passing game. And now those have kind of been neutralized by who's going to be throwing them the football. I look at the strength of the quarterbacks elsewhere in the league, the strength of the defensive and offensive lines at a lot of different programs where Texas Tech shines. I don't know that they shine to the point where they can get to 10 or 11 wins without Sorsby, and I think a couple others can.
Number 2.
I think we're going to have the same top 3. I've got Houston at number 2 here. Just based on what Willie Fritz has done his first 2 years, I think we know this defense is going to be salty, right? I mean, they've got some of the personnel certainly to back that up, but in 2 years already, Fritz has proven that regardless of the personnel, they're going to have a really good defense, so I'm buying that. And then when you factor in 12 starters back on both offense and defense, starting with your quarterback, who's heading into his 4th year with the experience, Amari Thomas at wide receiver, who is a first-team All-Big 12 performer, and he's back. Then they had Mekhi Hughes at the portal to shore up one of the holes they had at running back. Yeah, Houston is very much a Big 12 title contender.
And it's weird to say because I've got Houston at number 2, but like they're quietly dangerous. I don't understand why Houston is not getting any attention outside of what we talk about on this show. And I did my power rankings based off of just how I think these teams are top to bottom without really looking at their schedule. And so I don't know that this is how it shakes out standings-wise because Houston has to play Texas Tech in Lubbock on a Friday night. It's early in the season, though. Who knows what the quarterback situation looks like for that September showdown. But then again, Houston went 6-0 last year in true road games, so they've shown that they can win on the road. But yeah, 10-3, Wegman coming back. Keyshawn Henderson is his backup. Mekhi Hughes at running back. There are 3 offensive linemen are back, and they add Shadre Hurst from Tulane to bolster the interior. They're the team to me that nobody's talking about enough.
Number 1.
Number 1 is the Brigham Young University Cougars, a team that I argued should be a co-favorite with Texas Tech, even with Sorsby. Now clearly the favorites, in my opinion, in the Big 12. Bear Bachmeier is back and has a full offseason of work under his belt at BYU after becoming the starter basically right out of the gate, joining BYU late after his coach at Stanford was let go. 87% of the defensive snaps, 77% of the offensive snaps returned for BYU. So a lot of the same from last year for a team that once again won 11 games. LJ Martin, the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. Do I need to go on? This team's loaded. They have the best linebacking core in the Big 12. They have the best offensive players and weapons in the Big 12. BYU, the favorites of the Big 12.
They've got the most wins in the conference over the last 2 years. They went 12-2. The reports out of Provo is that Bachmeier looks like a different player this spring. More leadership, better command of the offense. They also added 2 former 5-star tight end transfers that I think are really going to bolster them offensively in both the ground game and the passing game. JoJo Phillips is the name to watch at receiver. He missed most of last year with an injury, but had a huge bowl game, and the coaches are saying that he's taking a major step forward this spring. And then all the other guys you mentioned with LJ Martin and the defensive guys. I've got BYU, the standard for now, at number 1 on my power rankings.
All right, guys, random power ranking of the day. Today is National Superhero Day. So, lightning round, top 5 superpowers that you guys possess or want to possess. Take it away.
Lightning round.
Superpowers that you possess.
Parallel parking, doing the dishes, grounding beef. You tell me.
I mean, in a world in which you can pick actual superpowers and, like, those pseudo superpowers, sure, grounding beef. Good job. Yeah, let's do that, number 5.
Okay. Number 5, wheelman instincts. Underrated, but always lethal. Calm, in control. Parallel parking, elite lane decision making. It doesn't matter. Kids, no kids, we're weaving in and out of traffic. Basically a quarterback on the road.
Okay. So your superpower that you possess is wheel working.
Driving.
Got it.
Number 4.
Well, so number 5 for me, I'm going to I kind of did this more on the athletic side. So, like, who are the best athletes and what are their superpowers?
Oh, okay. I like
Ones
that.
that I wish I had. I'm creative, James. Come on. Number 5 for me would be Michael Phelps, the anatomical cheat code. 6'4" wingspan, size 14 feet that act as flippers. The best thing you could do in a sport is basically be anatomically designed for said sport, which is what I would want as a superpower.
Love it. Number 4, competitive psycho. It's the mental aspect. 8-year-olds, no game, no shame, collateral damage, like video games, game of knockout. It's always game 7 in our house. So the competitive aspect, psycho levels. Number 4.
That's good. I like that. It's too low for what will be on my list. Number 4 for me is the Wayne Gretzky precognition, knowing where the puck is going to be before the puck gets there or before it's even passed or shot in that direction. Precognition. It's a classic superpower. Having an understanding of what's going to happen before it happens. Number 4 on my list.
Love it.
Number 3.
Number 3, just always in GQ mode. Aura creator. The fits always have to hit. No off days, guys. Let's build everybody up. Presence.
Did you just call yourself hot? Is that what you just did?
No. Aura.
Got it. Okay.
Energy.
So-
Vibes, dude.
But then you
Vibes.
mentioned
Always
GQ.
trying- Well,
Then you mentioned what you wear and dress.
it's
and
just it's
how you
just,
look.
No.
So basically, number
Just a-
3 is that you're good looking. Is that what you're
Mr.
saying?
GQ. No. Just a casual nickname. It's more just aura creator. I would
Got
say
it.
would be the headline.
So James' number 3 is I'm hot, and that's a superpower. My biggest superpower is that I'm good looking.
Nope, not at all. Okay. Number 3.
You can hide it and dress it up all you want, James. And look, I don't disagree. I'm just simply saying, call it what it is. Number 3 is Usain Bolt, stride efficiency. He's 6'5". He shouldn't be as fast as he is, but it's the way in which he's utilizing his strides. In some way, it's sort of like the Michael Phelps, where it's like your body is anatomically built for this. But Bolt, for me, I'm going with the stride efficiency superpower. It's not necessarily about how fast you are; it's how amazing your strides are.
I still, to this day, would love to see Usain Bolt on a football field, just a fly pattern. I just want to see how much faster he is than everybody else that runs like 4.35, 40s. It is just a social experiment I would love to be here for.
Number 2.
Number 2, I'm going for, this is what I strive for, the Bill Self level emotional intelligence. The locker room, the studio weapon, knows how to read a room, guests, co-hosts, recruits. Like, he's just always on. He is an elite showman of emotional intelligence. He doesn't just win the room, he controls the room. That's your guy.
Number 2 for me is going to be photographic memory. I think people suggest that LeBron James has that. I'm not certain about it, but certainly LeBron will be the first to tell you about how great his photographic memory is, because LeBron is the first to tell you about everything that he's great at, even if he's not great at it. But photographic memory, who wouldn't want that as a superpower? Number 2.
Number 1.
Much like my number 3. All right, number 1, I want like MJ, Kelvin Sampson level, whoever else, like elite discipline. Like these guys that they just get so much more done in the same amount of hours per day as everybody else. Show up every day, no excuses. It's the engine. Everything else feeds off of it. These guys are incredibly elite disciplinarians. Number 1 overall pick.
Number 1 for me is Michael Jordan's competitive psychosis. Dude was a lion, an uncaged lion on the court, a fierce competitor, and I think that discipline plays into the competitive psychosis that he had. That would be my number 1 superpower for sure.
He had it, dude. He had it. All right, we're about 20 minutes away from ranking our top 5 Big 12 defensive ends, part of our top 5 players at each position series here in the Big 12. We'll play a little Valid or Void later on, but after this timeout, Kat Osterman, ESPN analyst, general manager of the Texas Volts, she'll join us here on Big 12 today to get us caught up to speed on everything happening on the softball fields in the Big 12. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found. Horton the other way. Pass corralled by Douglas. A first down and another big play. There goes Douglas. Inside the 25. He's been a big play machine. A gain of 43 more.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a drive.
Morton long throw to the sideline, and the catch is made, and another missed tackle, and Douglas is free inside the 20 and inside the 15.
14 touches, almost 90 yards. Back shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas, who finds his own camera on a touchdown.
This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We are 20 minutes away from ranking the top 5 players at each position. Defensive ends, our highlight position today, part of our Modelo series, ranking the top 5 players at each position on the gridiron. But first we talk softball with Kat Osterman, ESPN analyst, general manager of the Texas Vaults, joins us now here on Big 12 today. Good morning, Kat.
Good morning.
So Texas Tech, they are rolling 48-4, 19-2 in the Big 12, currently number 4 in the AP Top 25. So what stands out about the Red Raiders? What are they doing differently this year compared to that team that made such a deep run last year?
Well, I think the difference between this year and last year is obviously Jerry used in LI to his advantage, and he went and got himself some more players. You know, he had brought some over with him from Louisiana in year 1, and he just was able to go get some more hitters, and it's really a second arm to complement Nyjah Kennedy. And, you know, Caitlin Terry has carried her own and really honestly been the offensive output as well for Tech. So, you know, just more of an all-around team this year than they were last year. They kind of just rode the arm of Nyjah, and to be honest, I felt like I was kind of semi-reliving my own college days in the Big 12 of like just get a couple runs and the arm can keep the other offenses at bay. And obviously it worked all the way till the very end, when obviously I think everyone could see she just kind of hit the wall that you can't push through anymore.
Talking with softball legend, 4-time Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, gold medalist for U.S. softball, Kat Osterman, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. You know, how much does it matter, and just kind of, I think, give our audience an insight here with, you know, the addition of Caitlin Terry and you know, not having the same innings load for Nyjah this year. You know, I think she's only at 92 innings, whereas last year she was well over 100 innings at this point. Just give us, our audience, kind of a sense of how big of a difference that makes.
I mean, it makes a huge difference. It allows you as a pitcher, you still keep your rhythm because she's still throwing, you know, once, twice a weekend, depending who their matchup is, or at least in the week, doesn't always have to throw the midweek and 2 games on the weekend. So that's been a big help for her. But I also think as a pitcher, it's just mentally and physically, you're kind of able to take a deep breath and enjoy it a little bit more, because when you're the one and you're constant grind like she was last year, your thought process every morning is like, do I feel well enough? If not, I have to go get recovery. Like there's just more that you put into it to where, I hate to say your free time's taken, but your free time's taken and all you're thinking about is making sure that you are recovered enough to be able to go again and again and again. And so when you have help, the weight of the world's not on your shoulders. So, you know, one bad inning or one possible, you know, run here and there isn't going to be the end all be all for a game. But 2, you know that you're going to have probably a whole game that you can just sit and watch and enjoy, and not have to mentally and emotionally go through the ringer as well. Because I think a lot of people, we talk about the physical aspect, but as a pitcher, you're out there battling, depending on how many pitches you throw, 100, 120, sometimes we get up to 150 pitches a game, and that's a mental and emotional battle every time with the hitter. And so that starts to wear on you too. There are a lot of times you talk to any elite pitcher, a really good game, they're probably more tired mentally and emotionally than they are physically, because they're just in there with this intensity and focus on every single pitch. So the goal is obviously down the stretch for her to be more fresh and not tired, and I think she'll definitely be in a different spot. I got to cover Tech when they came to UTSA a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and Jerry felt like she was the healthiest she's been and hitting really good spots. And, you know, that's pretty much the first thing that goes when you start to get tired, is your locations start to falter just a little bit because you're not as sharp.
Well, and the mental aspect of being in that position that's such a great point that you make. Stylistically, like the numbers between Nyjah and Terry are almost identical. So stylistically, how are they similar and how are they different?
I think they're similar in the fact they're both what I would deem power pitchers. They throw mid to upper 60s. You know, they can get away with something by jamming you just with pure power. Obviously, one being lefty, one being righty is a huge advantage for the Tech staff to be able to throw a solid look on both sides of the arm, basically. Terry, I think, is a little bit little bit more crafty and having to use a lot of pitches, like a lot of different pitches, where Nyjah is a lot of rise ball and her changeup. She'll mix some others in, but those are her two primary pitches. Where, you'll see Terry with a little bit of curveball on both sides. She has a changeup. She can go up. She can go down. So she's a little bit more crafty while being a power pitcher. But I think the biggest thing you see is they're both just competitors. So Jerry can run either one out, and they're both going to go compete, to the end of the earth for their team. And sometimes you have pitchers that you can visibly see are competitors, and sometimes you have the ones that you have to keep talking to and make sure, and they're competing, but they're just not the outward. Both of those show some outwardly competitiveness for the team to feed off of.
Kat, Arizona historically has been a very good program in softball, one of the top certainly in the sport, and they've been really good again this year, 44-11 overall, so right there with the 45-win Tech. What's your read on Arizona? Are they, a good enough team to potentially get to Oklahoma City?
The question with Arizona, especially going on a long run in postseason, is going to be their pitching staff. I think we've seen this year some high points and some low points. Obviously, they did beat Tech, and so had a tremendous pitching outing in that game. But then 2 games after, kind of gave up a ton of runs. And so it's going to be, does the experience this young staff have from this season, can they translate it to postseason rather quickly? Offensively, no question that Arizona could make a run. It's just going to be if their pitching staff can hold them or not. I think we talked about it on Big 12 Media Days, is the fact they only returned one pitcher, and I think she only had 8 innings last year.
Wow.
And so they had a completely new staff, pretty much let a couple go. Some others decided to transfer, which really kind of hit them to where they had to go searching for arms. But, Caitlin Lowe knows what it takes. Lauren Lappin knows what it takes. Both of those Olympians. Christian Conrad has done a good job there with the pitching staff over the course of the year. So could they? Yes. I can't say I see it necessarily for sure happening or even above 50-50 happening, but it does all rely to me in the circle for them, because defensively and offensively, we all know they can get it done.
And then how about Oklahoma State? They're currently 13th, move up 4 spots in the last poll. They're 3rd in the Big 12. They're 14-7, 34-13 overall. They've won 5 in a row. When you look at Oklahoma State, what do they look like?
Oklahoma State's heating up at the right time. They won their midweek against Oklahoma. They came down here. I say home because that's where I am. They won their midweek against Texas. They obviously took 2 of 3 from Arizona, so they're heating up at the right time. And I think, they're going to go as far as Ruby Malin can go. We talk about, how Tech used Nyjah last year. Oklahoma State's going to have to use Ruby Malin in the same way. So as long as Ruby Malin can keep going, I honestly think Oklahoma State has a good shot, because they are much lately. I want to say I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm not. Kenny Gajewski tends to get his teams together at the right time. But the way they started the season, I wasn't so sure they were going to be the team that we were all kind of talking about and expecting. But Ruby Malin has really turned a corner the last couple weeks, just to say, nah, this is how we're going to end this game. We're going to end this season the way I want to, and she's just driving the bus.
We don't pay much attention to the SEC around these parts, but
Okay.
Your Texas Longhorns won the national title last year. Oklahoma is obviously the gold standard in softball. So who's the better of those two this year?
Any given day, it's hard to tell. OU can still mash. I think they haven't really had the one stud in the circle this year like they have in the past. Texas on the other side, kind of evenly distributed. Their offense is great still. Katie Stewart, actually the star of it this year, as opposed to Reese Atwood. But again, I think across the country, the question is the pitching. Texas has Tegan Cavan, but they haven't really been able to find a consistent number 2. It's kind of a flip of a coin who they use in an off game. So I think consistency-wise, I think OU's getting more consistency out of their arms, even though it's still like a hodgepodge of using quite a few arms. But it'll be a fun postseason to see. And, they are former Big 12. We can say they're like old Big 12 teams. They don't have to say anything for 'em.
Well, and a meeting between either Texas Tech and OU or Texas Tech and Texas would be fantastic. It was a great series last year, and I'd love to see it again.
I really hope they don't. I really hope that none of them meet up in super regionals, because that would just be a travesty. That needs to be an Oklahoma City matchup for sure. Just with all the dynamics of
Yeah.
of Jerry building that team at Tech, and then what both of those programs have been able to do over the last couple years.
Yeah,
Totally.
Great point.
Also, Kat, you're the GM of the Texas Faults and the AUSL. Saw you guys had like a big jersey reveal. What's the latest in terms of the league and where it sits?
Well, I love the golden ticket idea, by the way. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you. They came up with that last year, just kind of a way to how do we get some excitement around our draft, and it really hit last year. Everyone, in fact, I went to a Texas Tech Arizona State game, and everyone's like, "Are you giving a golden ticket?" And I was like, "First of all, no, I am not dressed to be giving out a golden ticket. I'm just here to watch a couple kids I know." But anyone who was associated, all of a sudden we were getting questions on like, "Are you here for that? Are you here for the golden ticket?" And so it's been fun to watch because I think some athletes know they're going to get drafted. I'm not so sure that Nyjah was shocked she was getting drafted, but it's still a fun moment for fans to be there and see and engage in. The league right now, we are gearing up. We report for spring training in a month. Any college draftee that's in the College World Series will obviously finish out the World Series and then join us afterwards. But all teams have homes this year. That's the biggest move from last year to this year. We all have home sites. So now we'll just play home and home games. We're not touring to other cities where we don't have, our own facility and running things. But I think we welcomed 17 college kids, which is going to be fun to see. I have 2 spots on my roster that will get filled, and our draft is May 4th on ESPN2, I believe. So that evening, everyone will be able to watch and see where all of these kids that got the golden tickets landed. I should say young ladies. They're not kids, but they are kids to me as old as I've gotten lately. But everyone will be able to see the draft and where they landed. And, Nyjah was drafted. I know Sydney Stewart out of Arizona was drafted. Kinsey Brown from Arizona State's going. So there's some Big 12 athletes that get to continue that path to pro ball as well.
Well, Kat, they are kids to us too. So that's awesome stuff, man. Love the golden ticket. Best of luck with the upcoming draft, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, and excited to cover Big 12 tournament. So anyone listening, tune in, and you'll hear another familiar voice.
There we go.
Thanks, Kat.
Kat Osterman, ESPN analyst, general manager of the Texas Faults, working really hard with the AUSL. Legendary softball player, 3-time Olympic medalist, former Texas Longhorn star, 3-time softball national player of the year. Joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next, Ari and I are ranking the top 5 players at each position for defensive ends today. This is a new series we launched earlier this week, a different position group each and every day. We break down the top 5 edge rushers in the Big 12. Coming up next, this is Big 12 Radio.
That's an amazing stat when you consider how Iowa State runs it. Never really had a hold of that too well, but Dominic Marsh had something to do with it.
He got left.
Watch him right here. Just come across, just get across the line as fast as you can. Snap it and go. And blow up the play.
Boy, the hit by Orange, but he might be seeing black right now. That was a big-time play.
2nd and 8 at the 26. And they'll move straight ahead. Nothing doing. That's right. Dominic Orange in the middle. The bigs.
They're doing this with only 5 guys in the interior defenders. And they're going against 6 guys to defend the run. That's the key to this structure of defense. Gus, they play 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defense.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. We both had Houston number 2 in our post-spring Big 12 football power rankings. Today we're looking position-specific at defensive ends in the Big 12, the top 5 players at each position. You can also catch later on today our newcomer series. We touched on wide receivers in terms of the top 5 portal additions or newcomers in the Big 12. That airs at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central later on today right here on the channel. So defensive ends, a lot of turnover in the Big 12, a ton of guys drafted. As we assemble our list, just what do you think was the overarching theme?
Transfer portal. All 5 of my top 5 defensive ends are transfer portal additions to their school. So the Big 12 lost a ton in terms of edge rush, but gained a ton as well. And look, David Bailey and Arello Height were 2 transfers. So a year ago, it would have been the same story.
Yeah, well said. All right, number 5, who do you have?
My list, looking at the top 5 defensive ends in the Big 12, I kind of went off the board here a little bit, and I'm taking a leap of faith at a guy I'm really excited to see, and that would be Arizona State pass rusher Kirtland Vakalahi. 6'5", 265-pound defensive end from Queensland, Australia, who committed to Arizona State in November out of New Mexico Military Institute. Ranked as the number 8 JUCO transfer and number 3 defensive lineman in the 2026 class. He is the squad. But look, this is a young football player in his football journey in terms of a guy that grew up playing rugby and is new to the sport of football. But in 2 seasons at the New Mexico Military Institute, he recorded 35 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks, earning second-team preseason All-American honors from JC Gridiron. Here's what I like about him the most. So there's a lot of noise out of Arizona State that Clayton Smith is moving to wide receiver. Clayton Smith would be on this list, but his move to wide receiver to me says that what Arizona State has brought in through the portal at defensive end, they like a lot, and I like this guy a lot.
Sorry, they're moving a defensive end to wide receiver?
Yes.
Only Dillingham.
Well, and I guess at this point there's sort of confusion over, how much he's going to play on either side. But he's listed on the Arizona State website as an athlete, and he's been running with the wide receivers.
I'm here for it. All right, number 5 for me is a...
By the way, 6'5", 255-pound wide receiver.
Wide receiver. That would be big for a tight end. That dude's huge. All right, number 5 for me is a returner from TCU. TCU low-key has a really nice defensive line coming back. Paul Oyewale. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So this will be his 4th year on the field at TCU. Remember, he missed the 2024 season the entire year due to an injury after he started 8 games in 2023. Well, he bounced back in a big way last year. Played in all 13 games, had a career-high 31 tackles, had 7.5 TFLs, had 2 sacks. He had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and he had 7 tackles in TCU's Alamo Bowl overtime upset of USC, probably his best game of the year. So he's got 27 total games over 4 years under his belt at TCU. I think he's poised to break out in 2026. There were reports that he was going to enter the portal. Instead, he announced his return to TCU right after the bowl game back in January. So I've got him at number 5.
Number 4 for me is the Iowa State transfer defensive end, Isaac Terrell from Washington State. Terrell led Washington State last year in sacks and tackles for loss. He had 7 sacks and 12 TFLs as a junior, playing in 12 games with 6 starts. He also forced a fumble. He batted down a pass and recorded 6 quarterback hurries. He was named the Pac-12 Defensive Lineman of the Year last year, so he transfers to Pullman, to Ames from Pullman along with Jimmy Rogers. Isaac Terrell, the Iowa State pass rusher, number 4 on my list.
I feel like our top 5 in all these series, it's just a giant bingo card. And we finally hit because I have Isaac Terrell at number 4 as well.
Wow.
The Iowa State edge rusher who transfers from Washington State. And reports out of the spring is that he's been their most solid guy on defense. Said that he really stands out. The defensive coordinator, Jesse Bobbitt, said that some of the questions that they had during kind of this transition have been answered, in a major positive way because of his leadership. One of 14 players to come from Washington State with Coach Jimmy Rogers to Ames, Iowa. I've got Isaac Bobby Terrell at number 4.
All right, number 3 for me is the Kansas State transfer from Oklahoma State, Wendell Gregory, the Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. And how many games did Wendell Gregory play last year?
Not all of them.
Yeah. And yet, despite that, he's the Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. 27 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, most of any FBS freshman, 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hurries, a pass breakup, and a forced fumble. His 32 pressures ranked inside the top 10% of all edge rushers in college football last year. Guy's an absolute beast. Huge addition for Colin Klein. Number 3, Wendell Gregory from Kansas State.
Love it. All right, I've got a portal addition at number 3 as well, but it's not Gregory. It is Adam Trick, Texas Tech, 6'4", 250, signed with Miami of Ohio out of Huber Heights, Ohio. He redshirted in 2022, and then in 2023 he played in 13 games, but mostly on special teams. Broke out the last 2 seasons, 37 stops in 24. Last year he had 59 tackles, double-digit TFLs, almost 10 sacks, first-team All-MAC, and Pro Football Focus graded him 8th highest among all edge defenders in college football, in the same company as David Bailey and John Henry Daly and some of these others like first-round picks in terms of his pass rushing grade. So I've got Adam Trick at number 3.
Number 2 for me is Trey White. Not the former Kansas basketball player, but the San Diego State transfer who was first-team All-Mountain West twice. 47 tackles last year, 7 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss. Big-time player here, and one of 2 Texas Tech players to make my list.
One of 2 Texas Tech players. It's a tease. That's a tease. Number 2 for me is a different Trey. Trey Smith from Arizona, who only had 7 tackles last year, only had 1 TFL, because he only played in the first 4 games. He suffered a season-ending rotator cuff injury in early October. He had surgery that same morning that the injury was announced. He's out for the year. So he has received his waiver for a 6th year of college eligibility. He's played over 1,600 career snaps at Arizona, and I just want to remind people of how good he was when he was healthy 2 years ago. Started all 12 games, had over 50 tackles, had 8 TFLs, had 5 sacks. He is a high-level, productive defensive end for Arizona. He was their best defensive lineman last year prior to the injury. And so for them to still be that strong defensively, I think he has another kind of bounce-back season. He's been through this type of stuff before and proven that he can bounce back. He had a similar injury in high school. I've got Trey Smith, number 2.
Yeah, great call on Trey Smith there, a guy that's kind of become forgotten. But, yeah, you're right. A couple years ago, he was one of the best in the Big 12. Adam Trick is my number 1, the Texas Tech transfer, the best credentialed returning edge rusher coming back to the Big 12 with 67 pressures, 4th most in all of FBS, 59 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, an interception. He earned a 91.2 PFF overall grade, 8th among all FBS edge players. And he's got 18 tackles for loss and 13 sacks over the last 2 seasons. Adam Trick, big-time player for the defensive end position for Texas Tech. And 2 guys in Trey White, Adam Trick, that are trying to become first-round draft picks after spending a year at Texas Tech. We shall see.
And I think we're splitting hairs with our top 3. So many new, fresh faces on this list. Number 1 for me is where I have Wendell Gregory. What he did last year at Oklahoma State, he had 4 sacks, the most by any Division I FBS freshman. Finished with 27 tackles and 12 TFLs. Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. And like his numbers maybe weren't as impressive as the pedigree or the esteem that opposing coaches held him at. He finished inside the top 10 of all edge rushers nationally in pass rushing grade. Pro Football Focus had him 13th in the country. So he's going to Kansas State. He's got 3 years of eligibility, former high 4-star recruit, top 10 linebacker at the time out of high school. But then I was thinking, like Oklahoma State, they're getting boat raced, right? So to have all those TFLs and all those sacks when opponents don't have to throw the football because they're just gashing Oklahoma State on the ground, I think says a lot about his pass rushing ability to have the type of year he did for a school and a team that went 1-11 last season.
Well
Started
said.
his career at South Carolina.
By the way, on Clayton Smith, he did end up at the final week of spring practice returning with the defensive ends. Quote, Kenny Dillingham, he may bounce over for some certain situations on offense, but otherwise will remain on defense for the rest of camp. Quote, I think he knows the offense enough. If we threw him in there, like small packages throughout the year, he would understand the vernacular enough that it wouldn't be foreign to him. But we need him back on the D-line. His edge on the D-line is something we need, end quote. Probably a guy that should have made our list. I just was unsure of what his situation was. Looks like it's a guy that we're going to see as a primary defensive end, obviously based on his production, but also potentially on offense, the wide receiver position in different situations.
I mean,
very interesting.
I love the storyline. He's not listed as a defensive end on the Our Lads depth chart, which nobody better in terms of posting like updated depth charts. The other like hidden gem that I found going through this exercise, UCF maybe has the most fascinating prospect in the Big 12 on their roster, and he's expected to start at defensive end. Bruno Dahl. He is 6'7", 6'7", 260 pounds. 6'7", 260, a transfer from Akron. He was third-team All-MAC this past season at Akron. He had 9 TFLs, 4 sacks, but he's originally from Hamburg, Germany. He grew up playing overseas in that Euro League that a former offensive lineman, the kid that we talked to at Big 12 Media Days that had that thick German accent, he grew up playing NFL or playing football in Europe, I should say. They've got another German. He's an edge rusher for UCF, 6'7" from Akron.
Yeah, and we're starting to see more and more of the international influence in football. There's a kid from Georgia Tech who the Bears drafted in the 6th round this year from South Africa who's a former rugby player, Vandenberg. So, a lot of these guys, especially Vakalahi, we talked about at Arizona State, grew up maybe playing different sports, rugby, and then seeing where that translates. There's been a lot of success of former rugby players internationally that are having success playing football. So, it's only going to make the sport better if the, prospect pool is as deep as it's becoming.
Well, and there's a lot of hidden gems at this position that are unknowns because it's just flooded with transfers.
Yeah. No, this will be a very interesting position group in the Big 12 overall. There's no dominant force. I think last year it was obvious that David Bailey was going to be the best defensive end in the Big 12. I don't know if it was obvious he was going to be as good as he ended up being, but I certainly think we knew. I think right now, there's probably guys on this list that could end up becoming the best pass rushers that we didn't even put on our list.
Totally. Elijah Hill for K-State, led Conference USA as a true freshman in sacks from Kennesaw State. James Williams down at Oklahoma State is a transfer from Florida State where he was productive. He started 5 games, he played in 12. He was a former 4-star recruit. The other one that I had was Ethan Day, transfer from North Texas, who will be at Utah and projected to be their top edge rusher. He had a huge year last year for North Texas. And then West Virginia, quietly, a transfer from Coastal Carolina, who's 6'5", 290, Zeke Durham Campbell, had 40 tackles, was part of the third-team All-Sun Belt, had 38 pressures last year. So he'll be a huge part of that front for West Virginia. It's spread, I think, pretty evenly across the board in the Big 12 when it comes to this position and all the unknowns, to your point. All right, coming up next year on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, we play a little Valid or Void before Justin Williams joins us, senior writer from The Athletic. That's coming up around the corner. We are powered by Modelo on this Wheels Off Wednesday exclusively on TuneIn.
Elars Orr introduces himself to Scotty Fox in the backfield.
Horned Frogs show pressure. Kevin Jennings retreating. Bottles up and now goes down to the 5.
Level the red zone. And down he goes. How about those active ends and linebackers, huh? Caleb Elarmzor all over the place. This kid can play. Senior from Hayward, California. Option to the wide side. Counters. Great play. Elarmzor again. That young man has just been outstanding all day.
Here's Sama. And not much out there. They had the edge sealed. He swung
brought down behind the line of scrimmage.
Harden, the running back. Coming in from Westwood after 3 seasons. Elam's Orr, the tackle behind the line, the TFL.
Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Home.
Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. Heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Later on today, you can catch our Newcomer Series where we highlight the top incoming wide receivers in the Big 12. That is later today at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, also at 2 o'clock Eastern and 1 o'clock Central. And then we have our interview of the day, a replay each and every day here on Big 12 Radio. We talked with senior writer for Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, one of the biggest names in the industry. He will join us again, the replay, later on at 2:45 p.m. Eastern, 1:45 Central. and then at 4:45 Eastern and 3:45 Central Time, right here on Big 12 Radio. But it's time now to play a little Valid or Void before we catch up with Justin Williams, the senior writer for The Athletic. Taman has the topics. We have the takes. We validate or we void each of these. Taman, what do you have for us on this Wednesday?
All right, you guys kind of stole this from me, so I have a feeling I know where this is going to go. But I'll ask it anyway just to get further detail on it. Valid or void? BYU should be the favorite to win the Big 12 this season.
All right.
Yeah, I'll say valid. In fact, I felt like that was valid even before the Sorsby news, at least as part of the discussion. I mean, when you've got basically 90% of your offensive production and 80% of your defensive production back from a team that won 11 games last year, I'd say that's a pretty good start. I also I don't think we can downplay the Bear Bachmeier angle. He's one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks in the Big 12 right now, and a guy that put up the season and the numbers that he did despite not even being on campus for spring football as a true freshman. Like, that is a remarkable story, and the fact that he now has a full offseason, spent spring with the team, consistency as an offensive coordinator, there's just a lot that adds up here for success for BYU. So, I think BYU should have been in the conversation before the Sorsby news and should be leading the way after the Sorsby news.
Yeah, completely agree. I will validate this as well. I look at BYU as being much more explosive offensively. With LJ Martin back, he bypasses the NFL draft. Reports out of spring are that Bachmeier looks like a different player. And then I think they're going to be more tight end heavy with a lot of their sets, which they've had success regardless of who's been at that position. When you factor in the transfer from Oregon, when you add in Walker Lyons, the USC transfer, 5-star out of high school. And so even with the loss of Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts at wide receiver, I look at JoJo Phillips as being a guy who could have a major breakthrough year. He was hurt most of last year, but he was being touted as their fastest and most athletically gifted wide receiver. They've got Bear's brother, Tiger, back at receiver. They've got Cody Hagan back at receiver. And then they add Kyler Casper, who's projected to be a starter. He's 6'6", former high-level 4-star who transfers from Oregon. That's just a massive target for Bachmeier to throw the football to. So I really like the BYU offense, and the defense is always good. Full stop there.
Thanks for those further details. So, staying on the football field, we all know there's a difference between being the favorite and actually doing something. So, valid or void, Texas Tech, despite all their issues, will win the Big 12. Valid or void?
Interesting question here. So, BYU is the favorite, but will Texas Tech win the Big 12? So, yesterday you mentioned this, that the win total for Texas Tech went from 11.5 to 10.5.
Correct.
Has it moved any more?
I still see it at 10.5.
It's interesting because I'm assuming the one loss difference accounts for Sorsby. Feels like it's not as much as it should be, right? So the expectation, I think, with Will Hammond is fairly high, and maybe it kind of starts and ends with his ability to play as many games as possible. So I think that says a lot. I mean, Vegas wins. The betting odds, they know. So the fact that the Sorsby loss is only worth one win difference, to me, says a lot. So, yeah, I still think Texas Tech wins the Big 12. I will say valid. Texas Tech still wins the Big 12. I mean, they had a ton of talent. 9 players drafted last year, and they're still the favorites in the Big 12. Still 10.5 wins, despite everything they lost. What they bring in the portal, their offensive line, their running game. Yeah, give me Texas Tech to win the Big 12.
So I will void this with the caveat that I think that they get to the Big 12 championship game, because if Will Hammond is playing as early as week 3 or week 4, even if they go under that 10.5 mark, they went 11-1 in the regular season last year, even with a healthy roster and 2 quarterbacks that were both really rock solid during the regular season. So I think they can get to 10-2 if Sorsby's worth the lack of him is worth one loss, you tack on a loss from last year. Now, 10-2, I still think gets you to the Big 12 championship game. So it comes down to what do you do there? Well, I really like this BYU team, but Texas Tech, the thing they have going for them more than anything else is their schedule. They open with Abilene Christian and they play at Oregon State. You can survive those games with me and you at quarterback. But then they play Houston September 18th, but it's in Lubbock. Then they get Sam Houston after that. Like, they avoid BYU. They avoid Kansas State. They avoid TCU. I beg your pardon. Utah was the one I was thinking of. They play TCU the final regular season Saturday. Like, their Big 12 schedule is very friendly. A lot of the tougher teams at home, their road trips aren't as daunting. So 10-2 seems very reasonable. I don't care who's at quarterback, which to me would have you playing in Arlington.
All right. We go from the football field to the hardwood, the basketball court. So, valid or void, Tyron Stokes will lead Kansas to the Final Four, and I can't wait to hear the thoughts from the guy wearing the Kansas t-shirt.
Valid. Yeah, I mean, I look at this roster, and there's still moves to be made, but I think this is a better roster than last year's. I also see a guy in Tyron Stokes that has an edge to him. He's got a lot to prove. Despite being the number one recruit in college basketball, like, I've heard a lot of NBA draft insiders and scouts quoted as saying, like, yeah, he wouldn't even crack the top 5 in this year's draft. He's got a lot to prove. Dude's got a lot to prove, which makes me excited about his potential. I think he, along with Taylon Kinney, have a lot to prove. And then again, you've added some players that I think fit what you needed. They need to surround Stokes with more shooters. I think like a Euro stretch 4 would be perfect. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this team could certainly be led to a Final Four by Tyron Stokes. The edge that he has to him, the prove it mentality, his 6'7", 230-pound frame, the ability to get inside and score at will. Can't wait to see his game, and I think it translates in a big way. I'm not falling for the okie doke this year. I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe this year. Totally different player, totally different year, totally different vibe. Tyron Stokes is going to lead Kansas to the Final Four.
So if he's 6'7", 230, he's kind of built like Julius Randle or Zion Williamson. Like, is he a 3? Does he play on the perimeter? Is he going to be the 4?
He's a 3.
Okay, he's a true 3.
He's a small forward in a power forward's body.
I like that.
And he can handle the ball. He can distribute. I mean, he doesn't have as good of, I don't think, shooting or total scoring ability as a Darren Peterson does. But we also didn't really totally see that last year. I think his ability to rebound, get into the lane, and score at will is what separates him. Like, you can't stop him. He gets to the rim when he wants to.
Well, and Darren Peterson only played more than 25 minutes 7 times last year in a 38-game schedule or whatever KU ended up playing. I don't know about Final Four. I like this Kansas team a lot with Blyden and Kinney.
What's the issue here? It's April 29th. Why not just say it, James?
Well, sometimes we just have to be a little bit contradictory of one another. So if you say Final Four, I say no way. I say Bill Self hasn't been higher than a 4 seed in the NIL era the last 3 seasons. He just had arguably the number 1 player in America. He didn't play the whole year. KU goes out in the second round. KU hasn't been past the second round in the last 4 tournaments.
What'd they do, though, the last time they went to the second round?
Once they went past the second round, like actually got to the second weekend pre-NIL and transfer portal, they did win the whole thing. So I'll give them that. But in this modern era, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
I do think KU's – I'm with you on, I like their roster a lot. It's better than last season. It's deeper. There's more pieces to be excited about, but I've got to see it.
You wouldn't have validated this if I avoided this.
No, probably not either.
Yeah, I didn't think so. You were like, I had to be contradictory. There was no way you were validating this.
Pratt affected you so hard, it happened to work out for me.
All right, last one, guys. So yesterday, Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority dropped a bomb on us by saying there's a 50-50 chance that Koa Pete will return to Arizona. So my question to you guys is, valid or void? Koa Pete will return to Arizona next season.
Valid.
Go ahead.
Koa Pete's coming back. Something just in my gut tells me he's going to be back. He's going to go through the process, but his draft stock hasn't really improved since remember, maybe his best game of the year was the season opener against Florida. He had like 30 points and 13 rebounds. He was dunking. He was crossing people over. He's got to extend his game. He's not a reliable shooter outside of 15 feet, which is what's scaring NBA scouts right now. He's also only about 6'8". If you're 6'7", 6'8" in the NBA, you need to be able to shoot outside of 15 feet. That's something that he can really improve at Arizona. Arizona has a tremendous coaching staff. You've seen bigs like Tobe Awaka extend their range throughout the course of their career. He was hitting top of the key threes the back half of the season and had never shot a three in his life. So Koa Pete, with that development, can help himself in a much thinner draft pool next season. Also, like, he doesn't have to worry about a bunch of early entries like these guys used to. Like, there's more opportunities now to get drafted higher if you come back and you're projected to be a first-round pick, because there were only 71 early entries this year. They just happen to be guys that are all going to be taken ahead of Koa Pete when you look at the elite talent. So I think he's back.
Yeah, I'm going to validate this as well. Look, I mean, I think just based on what I saw and projection for him in an NBA career, this guy should be higher than a top 20 pick. But most of the online publications with mock drafts have him at 20 or lower. Tankathon.com's mock draft has him at 20 to Arizona. NBADraft.net has him 29th to Cleveland. He is, according to ESPN, the 22nd ranked prospect in his class. So I think anywhere that's outside the top 15, outside the lottery, it's probably a go back to Arizona type deal. For what you said, the 2027 class is not as good. I mean, if NBA scouts are saying Tyron Stokes wouldn't be a top 5 pick in this draft, well, then that says a lot about next year's draft. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny, too. Remember, we talked with both Braden Burries and Koa Pete at the Big 12 tournament, and Braden Burries indicated that both he and Koa Pete were going to be leaving and going to the NBA, but Koa Pete did not. In fact, he was like, yeah, no decision's been made, and it's never been more clear than how this has transpired. Yeah, I see him coming back for sure. I'm going to validate this.
Well, and like, he comes from a family of professional athletes. They know the business. They know the industry. Number one, they're a very financially well-off family because they've got like 8 people that have played professional sports and made a ton of money. So, like, they're not going to get caught by an agent who comes in and says, oh, this is your chance. You have to do it. You have to get this contract and be this pick, and we can get you there. Like, they're not going to lean into that smoke. And then if you look at, if he does come back, Arizona's starting 5 of Krivos and Pete and Karchinkov and the 2 5-star top 10 freshmen and Caleb Holt and Cameron Holmes, all of a sudden that roster looks very, very different. If he comes back, is Arizona the favorite? Like, no questions asked?
Yeah, but I also look at history, man. Don't come back. You know, like, maybe he comes back and improves his draft stock for the things we just talked about. But maybe he doesn't. I think there's a lot of indication that he might not. Now, we'll see. Look, I mean, he'd play more and have more of an impact at Arizona than he would in the NBA next year. Right? So having the ball in your hands, being counted on, those kinds of things matter. Getting the experience and doing that matters. So, yeah, but yeah, they should definitely be the favorites.
Well, and Carter Bryant, 2 years ago, I thought he would come back. Remember, he wasn't even starting. He was like a 6-point-per-game guy off the bench. But NBA scouts loved his athleticism and his potential, and he still went in the lottery. Like, still was a top 13 pick and had a really nice rookie year. So we'll see. All right, Justin Williams, that is a little valid or void here on Big 12 Radio. Justin is the senior writer for The Athletic. He's all over the Sorsby stuff. We talked to him about the NFL draft. He is the college football expert, and he will join us after this timeout. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Gilkey off the hands of Record and intercepted. Genesis Smith, the safety, inside the 15.
Sorsby was. He throws. It's Cyrus Allen, and they rally to swing him down. Genesis Smith with great speed to the perimeter.
Nice catch. Up, it's on the ground. It's fumbled. Picked up. by Arizona. And going the other way inside the 5-yard line, Genesis Smith.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. Heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios with Ari Timken. I'm James Westling, and we welcome in senior writer from The Athletic, Justin Williams, who just wrote What's Next in Brendan Sorsby's gambling scandal. Here are the top remaining questions. Justin, good morning. What are the top remaining questions, and how do we get answers?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, the kind of the biggest thing kind of hanging out there just with the whole case in general is, how and when did the NCAA get tipped off to Brendan Sorsby and his gambling and kind of launching that investigation. And obviously they're in the investigation now and there's going to be some fallout from that. But I do think those that are invested in the story for one reason or another are kind of curious if we're ever going to get that exact answer to how the investigation started. And then spinning it forward, I think there's a big question. Obviously, what is the outcome of the investigation? And then what does that mean for Sorsby? And honestly, what does that mean for Texas Tech in 2026? Based on what we know right now, it's really not encouraging for Brendan Sorsby and maybe his availability and eligibility for 2026. We'll wait and see what the investigation says. But if you're Texas Tech, you brought in a really highly coveted, highly prized quarterback out of the transfer portal, paid a lot of money for him, and now you're staring down the scenario where you're not going to have him in 2026. Your backup quarterback's coming off an ACL tear last fall, and a team that had aspirations of repeating as Big 12 champs and going to the college football playoff is now kind of suddenly, staring down some concerning prospects for this coming season.
Well, you mentioned on social, on X, the day the Sorsby stuff came down, that on the same day Cincinnati, or rather Sorsby and his team, filed a motion to have the Cincinnati lawsuit dismissed. So I'll kind of trace back to maybe ask you where you think this leak could have come from.
Yeah, obviously, like the lawsuit, with Cincinnati has been ongoing. Honestly, I think that the timing of the gambling and the investigation coming out Monday, the same day that his legal team is filing a response in the lawsuit, I think that was coincidental. Truly, that was kind of that date for the lawsuit had been predetermined for weeks. In terms of where it came from, there's definitely a narrative out there that Cincinnati would have dropped the dime on this. In my reporting and people I've talked to, there's been no evidence of that. Obviously there's been some reports that Cincinnati knew about Brendan Sorsby gambling as far back as last summer. That was a USA Today report, I think, on Monday. I've confirmed that as well, but I think there's some nuance there. There is certain gambling that would have been legal for Brendan Sorsby to do, like on UFC and NASCAR. We can get into that distinction. But as far as, my reporting and people I've talked to, there was no official Cincinnati capacity that understood he had made violations or done any illegal betting. And as of right now, this investigation by the NCAA is just focused on Sorsby, the individual. There's not any implications for any of the schools he's attended.
Justin Williams from The Athletic with us. And Justin, you're in Cincinnati, so can you break down and elaborate on the type of bets and where, Cincinnati sits in this whole thing? If they were aware that he was betting, but it was legal, I think you said, can you dive deeper into that?
Yeah, so if you are of legal betting age, which is generally 21, and you're in a state where sports betting is legal and you're a college athlete, there are actually some bets, sports betting you can do that is legal. UFC, horse racing, NASCAR. The actual NCAA rule is it can't be a sport that has an NCAA sanctioned championship in that sport. So what that basically means is there are NCAA sanctioned championships in football, in basketball, in baseball. So college athletes cannot bet on MLB or NBA or NFL or anything like that. But because there's no kind of college equivalent for UFC or NASCAR or horse racing, it is actually legal, again, if you're of legal betting age and in a state where it's legal, that a college athlete could bet on those things. So if Brendan Sorsby was betting on UFC, last summer when he was 21 years old in Cincinnati, and the athletics department might have known about that, that would technically be legal gambling. Again, the sources that I've talked to, familiar with the Cincinnati program, claimed that they would not play an athlete who had knowingly committed violations against the NCAA, and that Cincinnati was not aware of any illegal gambling by Brendan Sorsby.
Interesting. Would there be a penalty for Cincinnati if they were?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that would be, but obviously if it, were discovered that Cincinnati, was aware that there was some type of, illegal or gambling that was against NCAA rules and either covered it up or kind of looked the other way and played Brendan Sorsby anyway, then I do think you kind of get into that NCAA Committee on Infractions, and is it possible they would have to vacate wins or games or records because you're essentially playing knowingly or looking the other way and playing an ineligible player.
What do you think the timeline looks like? I mean, we were told that the investigation is paused for the 30 days that Sorsby is in his treatment program, for lack of a better term. So what do you think the timeline looks like in terms of decisions being made and steps forward?
Yeah, honestly, I think that is still kind of another one of those big questions, because you're right. Generally, in this case, if you're the NCAA, you're going to want to speak with Brendan Sorsby before making a ruling on the investigation. And I'm still not totally clear on how his treatment plan, whatever that might be, will affect that. Is it something where he's not going to be able or willing to talk to the NCAA while he's in that treatment facility? Do we know exactly how long he's going to be in there? From talking to some people that are familiar with how these investigations work, when it's focused on an individual and you don't have to get the NCAA infractions committee involved and kind of focus on schools, these investigations can tend to move a little bit quicker. But as I said, I don't know that the NCAA would want to make a final ruling or move things along if they can't talk to the main person in this investigation. And so the rehab treatment facility stay that he kind of entered into, that does throw another kind of wrinkle and complication into this whole matter that could end up prolonging things.
Justin, this just feels like such a seminal moment in college athletics. I mean, we know just how pervasive gambling is, in sports, and in this moment in college sports. I think there's probably a potential argument against legalized sports gambling and how we've seen it play out, but at this point, the toothpaste is out of the tube. I guess I'm just curious for your commentary on, what this could mean for the sport moving forward with such a high-profile case like this.
Yeah, look, it's not the first gambling scandal we've had. There's obviously, Hunter Deckers and Iowa State athletes a couple of years ago. We've seen some of these gambling rings that have brought in, specifically basketball players with fixing games and things like that. But you just mentioned how high profile this is. This is one of the, if not the top transfer quarterback in the portal this past offseason, was going to be one of the highest paid players in college football in 2026, was projected as a top draft pick in the NFL, whether this year or next year. And now all this attention is on it, and he's, publicly going into a treatment facility for his gambling addiction. Like, it's one of those things where once it's on your doorstep, you kind of can't ignore it. And I think this has put the story on the doorstep for a lot of people. And I agree with you that it's kind of hard to walk back some of the legalized gambling, especially when you see how pervasive it is just in sports in general. But this is something that the NCAA has been worried about for a long time. They have tried to be proactive in terms of, doing education and having opportunities and trying to have all these partnerships with monitoring companies and things like that. But it's just so tough when it's such a pervasive thing in culture to not expect, 18 to 25-year-old people to kind of engage with this, especially, on college campuses or in states where it's legal to do it online if you're 21 years or older. So I don't know what the answer is. I do think if the NCAA were kind of looking for opportunities to reiterate why it could be a damaging thing for college sports, this is a big one. And I'm kind of curious, not that they're going to use and take advantage of it, but just, this is going to be kind of an eye-opening thing for a lot of people that this is a big problem. And I'm curious to see what the NCAA does from here and what college sports does from here in terms of trying not to have it be a repeat situation.
Yeah, that's really well stated. I mean, we noted that over half of American males between 18 and 49 years of age have an online sports betting account, and that number's even higher, the younger end of the spectrum towards 18. What do you think this does, just your opinion on his NFL future? Does it have any impact on that?
I think so. I mean, look, we see this all the time where there are definitely going to be certain teams and franchises that, either wouldn't draft him as high or wouldn't have him on the board because of these concerns, if you want to call them character concerns or whatever they are. But I think we've also seen, the history of the league. There's definitely going to be teams that are either willing to look past that or give second chances. I think the supplemental draft conversation is an interesting one. There's no guarantee that the NFL would hold it if that was something that, Brendan Sorsby decided to pursue here later this year. Obviously, if that isn't the case, he could also, would be entering next year's draft one way or another, depending on the outcome of this investigation. But this is definitely going to be something that teams are going to have questions about and going to want to look into. And so it certainly doesn't hurt or certainly doesn't help his draft stock. But he's a really talented player, and he's a quarterback, and I do think that'll be kind of one of the fascinating things to track, whether it's supplemental draft or 2027 NFL draft. What does the future look like for Brendan Sorsby, and how does this incident impact that?
Justin, are you from Cincinnati?
I am, yes.
Because as I said, I knew you had a connection to Cincinnati, and you covered the Bearcats at some point?
covered the Bearcats for about 5 years, mostly during those Luke Fickell seasons when he was here in Cincinnati, and then have not been on the beat for the past 3 years or so, but obviously have done a lot of Big 12 coverage, and I've spent some time in Lubbock, and Texas Tech has been kind of the story of the Big 12 the past couple of years. So that's another kind of fascinating wrinkle to this, is just how the Brendan Sorsby storyline has dovetailed between Cincinnati and Texas Tech.
And are you a Cincinnati grad, or did you go elsewhere?
No, I'm an Ohio University grad,
Nice.
so a little Maction, and
The reason,
very, very fond memories of Athens, Ohio.
Yeah, no, for sure. The reason I ask is, I wanted people to understand your background, in covering Cincinnati, being around it, obviously, which is helpful and insightful in covering the story. I'm just curious, though, from an analysis standpoint, like, what do you make of Sorsby? Because, he obviously put up some big-time numbers at some really big games, but, the past 2 seasons, he really went cold at the end of the year relative to expectations. This was 2 years for Cincinnati where, they got off to such hot starts and then completely cratered at the end. A couple of years ago, they blamed it on receivers not being able to get open down the field. This year, they had, 2 receivers get drafted and guys that could certainly separate athletically. What do you make of Brendan Sorsby, the player?
Yeah, look, crazy talented. I mean, just has all the ability in the world. It's not surprising that he was such a highly touted transfer and was so coveted by Texas Tech and LSU and Miami's and others in the transfer portal. I think he definitely, would have liked to have seen a little more late season production out of him and out of Cincinnati, the team, the past couple of years. Last year especially, I do think they improved that roster on offense.
Yeah.
They had a good offensive line. They had good weapons. And, they started the year so strong. They had a chance to beat Nebraska in that first game, went on a nice winning streak after that. And then, kind of the wheels just fell off at the end of the season, like you mentioned, 2 years in a row. So in that sense, yes, I think you would have liked to see a little more on-field production, win-loss production out of Sorsby. But I had high expectations for him in 2026 with Texas Tech, putting even more talent around him, putting a good defense around him down there on a team that had just come off winning the Big 12 championship. I think he had a chance to go down there and have a really special season, maybe be kind of a dark horse Heisman candidate, and then be an early round draft pick in the 2027 draft. So on that front, obviously it's disappointing for Texas Tech, and we can talk about that, but just a really disappointing situation for a player who I think had all the potential and opportunity in the world. And right now it seems like things are not at all going to go as planned or expected.
So let's talk about that from the Texas Tech angle. I mean, you've just spent $5 million on a quarterback who's probably going to be ineligible. You've got another quarterback coming off a torn ACL. Just in terms of like the not just the legal investigative part, but the financial piece and everything else, what sticks out about what Texas Tech is going through?
Yeah, the financial part, that's another kind of unanswered question. I have to assume that these, NIL revenue sharing contracts, there's probably something in there about whether they're voided or lessened, due to ineligibility or suspensions. We don't get to see those contracts, so I'm not totally sure yet what the details would be. But if, Brendan Sorsby's ineligible for the 2026 season or suspended for half of it, I have a hard time believing there isn't something in those contracts that would maybe kind of void or change those. Yeah. But that is one piece to it. Honestly, the other piece is just, this is Texas Tech. This is a team that spent money last year, and maybe it didn't work out in the playoff, but man, it really paid off for winning the Big 12 title and having an incredible season. And I think they just had 9 players, drafted last week. So a really talented program that was, going all in again. They have the resources. They have a great coach in Joey McGuire. They have kind of a winning culture building there. And I think they felt like maybe one of the things that held them back, especially in that playoff game, was quarterback last year. And they felt like Brendan Sorsby was the answer to that. And now, you're going into it, at least at the moment, completely kind of blind and unknown. Will Hammond really showed some flashes last year, especially in that Utah game on the road early in the year. But he tore an ACL, and, we're not sure exactly when he'll be ready for that. Even if he's cleared, will he be 100%? How much preseason prep will he be able to do? They brought Kirk Francis, a former Tulsa quarterback, out of the portal, but he was kind of ravaged by injuries last year, too. They have some young guys behind him. This is not at all the situation that Texas Tech expected to be in going into the 2026 season. They're still a really talented team, really talented roster, but those aspirations of repeating in the Big 12, getting back to the college football playoff, they just seem so much longer if you don't have that star quarterback in place.
Right, definitely. And then, Justin, the last thing I wanted to ask you about, are you following all the paper trail of what the NCAA is trying to do with the eligibility requirements, the 5 for 5 or whatever it is. Can you break that down and what that looks like? And is that realistic? And are players grandfathered in? I know there's a lot of looming questions.
Yeah, so I think it kind of took a next step earlier this week, right? That might have got lost in the sauce on Monday. It's not finalized yet, but there seems to be a lot of momentum for this in terms of giving players 5 years of eligibility in 5 seasons. There's also that age component, which I think is a big thing. It's 5 years from your high school graduation or turning 19, whichever comes first, which obviously for most athletes would be high school graduation. But I think it's, especially in basketball, it's going to impact a lot of these international players or those players who might have been trying to kind of go the G League route and come back. So I think it's going to have a big impact there. In football, there was always this kind of weird thing with red shirts, right? Where do you hold a player to just 4 games so you can get that extra year out of him? Now coaches aren't going to have to worry about that. You can just play a true freshman as much as you want because you're going to get 5 years out of him. I do think the big kind of looming thing that still needs to be figured out is that grandfather situation that you mentioned. The news from Monday seemed to be that, like, as of right now, the plan would be there wouldn't be any grandfathering. So that if you just finished your 4th year of college athletics, it's not like you're going to be able to get a 5th year. I do think that, brings in another possibility for more legal cases, more lawsuits, which seems to be what happens with everything in college sports. I'm kind of curious how they address that. And if this does get put to a vote and approved next month, which is a possibility, what will be kind of the final decision on that grandfathering? If they don't have that built in, then I would expect at some point you're going to see someone kind of challenge that in court. And, as we've seen, that seems to be kind of the cycle with things in college sports these days.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a ton of guys challenging that in court. Really great breakdown, Justin. Appreciate your time. Great piece on the latest with the Sorsby stuff, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Justin.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Justin Williams, senior writer for The Athletic from Cincinnati, went to Ohio in Cincinnati, joining us to break down from the national perspective, everything going on with Brendan Sorsby and the eligibility stuff in collegiate athletics. Coming up next here on Big 12 Today, Ari and I will deep dive what the NCAA is looking to do as they expand March Madness to 76 teams. This will probably be finalized in the next month. What it means for you filling out your brackets and the future of college basketball. This is Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, here on a Wednesday.
Play fake. Hammond, sideline, back shoulder. Virgil twist to grab it. And in a hurry, Texas Tech is right in front of Arizona State.
6 on the left-hand side, starting his 50th game this afternoon. Looking long, it's Virgil. He's got it inside the 15. He beat Henderson again.
Defenders, they do a good job there.
Reverse, Virgil. Reverse. Virgil. Oh yeah. A hop, skip, and a jump touchdown.
Virgil's got the first down, still on his feet. And Virgil is going to take it inside the 30.
Goal. Morton with all kinds of time.
Virgil!
Reggie! Oh my goodness, what's happened to Virgil today?
Hammond, they throw it up top again. Now they're showing off. Touchdown, Reggie Virgil.
He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. Modelo for the full-time fan. Modelo fan rule number 88. You'll defend your team even when they make it hard, which could apply to some of this week's headlines. We power ranked the top 5 Big 12 defensive ends, part of our power ranking positional series. We highlight a different position each and every day here on Big 12 Radio. We also went through our newcomer series, which you can catch later on today right here on Big 12 Radio on the channel at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time. Also at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time. We highlight the wide receivers today later on the channel. And then our interview of the day, we talked with Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports. You can hear that at 4:45 this afternoon Eastern, 2:45 this afternoon Eastern as well. So we've got a bunch of stuff throughout the day here on Big 12 Radio. The future of college basketball. College basketball is going to look very different. Number one, because here in the Big 12 for the second year in a row, the number one prospect in the country has committed to a Big 12 school, Kansas, with Tyron Stokes. But also the NCAA plans to expand the NCAA tournament. This should be finalized within the next month. And so the bracket, as the tournament expands to 76 teams that we have filled out for 40 years every March, 76 teams on a single piece of paper in an easy to understand format for the average fan will no longer exist. And that's something very small that I think is understated. You brought it up earlier during our conversation when we touched on this. Like the bracket's not going to exist anymore in the way that it has for the last 40 years. It's kind of a big deal.
Well, and when you think about filling out a bracket, the play-in games have not exactly served as, a needed entity when it comes to filling out the bracket. But how will that change now? Because there's so many more teams in the sort of play-in, quote-unquote, opening round part of it. So I think, that's where I start. The bracket and filling out a bracket is instrumental in the popularity of the tournament itself. And so when you create more friction in that, I wonder what that looks like. Right? I mean, have they gotten too greedy with the amount of teams they want in order to make more money? Anybody that's there's trying to think of it's like a profound point that it's for more money. Yeah, of course. That's exactly what this is. They are being sued. The walls are caving in on them. They needed to grab into the couch cushions and grab some coins. And that's what they've done here. The question is, though, have they gone so far in pursuit of more dollars that they have alienated or made worse the one draw of the tournament that is a huge draw of the tournament?
I mean, when you get to those play-in game lines, you just kind of skip them. And there's a slash on the bracket, or it just says play-in game. And to the average fan, when broadcasting a live event, 50% of the viewing audience doesn't know the sport. So all these college football, college basketball, records that are being shattered, 50% of those people are average fans that don't know the sport in and out like we do. So when you talk about filling out a bracket, simplicity is best. I would assume that more than half of people filling out brackets don't know the sport. They're filling out a bracket to fill out a bracket. And now that totally goes out the door. The proposed format, so the opening round, which will be 24 teams playing 12 games, that would start on Tuesday.
And so it's basically the 16 seeds, the 15 seeds, the 14 seeds, and the 13 seeds? Is that what it is now?
You got it. So because of the current play-in game format, you have 16 seeds. That number now balloons to 8. And then you have 6 number 15 seeds instead of 4. So you've got all the 16 and 15 seeds. They go right into that opening play-in round. They now have to earn their way to the round of 64. And then the other opening round, slots in the mix, 11 seeds, 12 seeds, maybe a 13 seed game. And so that translates to not just the power conference schools, but also all the mid-major conference champions who used to get a guaranteed Thursday game in the round of 64, those guys are basically all going to have to play on Tuesdays and play in those play-in games. So it's going to look very different. Like the office pool starts Tuesday, not Thursday.
Well, and I also wonder, it feels like the 15s and the 16 seeds will be almost better positioned to compete and win games. So in some ways it feels better. Now, not necessarily saying like suddenly we're going to see a ton of 15 seeds knock off 2 seeds, but if you already had to win if you essentially had to win another tournament to get into that tournament, then obviously you've played against competition on the level that, that you'd need to prove yourself against. So again, maybe part of it is more attractive. And then, obviously this means more for the power conferences. I think, you're going to see a situation in which Cincinnati probably gets in a 76-team field, whereas opposed they didn't in this one, or West Virginia probably gets in. I think you're probably looking at 1 to 2 more additions from each of those power conferences.
Definitely. And so the math, the 76 that we start with, you have all these play-in games, 12 of them featuring 24 teams. So it goes from 76, you play that down to 12, couple that with the 52 automatic bids or rate, whatever you want to call them, you get to your 64. Like, then it's normal. But I think your point about the Big 12, using this year's field as the model, Oklahoma would have been in from the SEC despite a 7-11 record. That also would have opened the door for Cincinnati, would have been in, West Virginia would have been in, and then maybe even like an Oklahoma State or a Baylor. When you think about all the teams that were on the bubble from the Big 12, do you think that this in any way improves the chances of like more upsets? Or do you think it hurts that angle of potentially having a Cinderella, like maybe a team gets
I think if anything it helps, but I don't know that it does. It certainly doesn't hurt the potential for upsets. I think what hurts the potential for upsets is the transfer portal at NIL, which is, essentially left alone due to this. I think you might see some more upsets from the standpoint of the power conference teams, because a lot of these rosters are going to be flush with talent that, used to be readily available. But I would say the factors that lead to upsets are sort of outside of the structure of this 76-team field. I'm just going to be curious to see what the filling out a bracket looks like. What will you be responsible for filling out? Will it just be now the 52-team field? Will it have to include the 12 games with 24 additional teams? I can't see a world in which it doesn't to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's take the BYU pocket, for example. BYU gets upset by Texas in the 6-11 game. Texas won their play-in game. But when you're filling out a bracket, you almost just slot BYU because, okay, is it going to be Texas? Is it going to be Miami, Ohio? Like, we don't know who they're potentially going to play. And it's kind of annoying to have to do that in 4 spots, and now you have to do it in 12. I don't see any way you can fit all of these, 24 teams on a single piece of paper or revise the bracket. Or it also eliminates, ESPN with how many people fill out and play their tournament challenge. That locks on Thursday. Does it still lock on Thursday? Are people scrambling to revise their bracket between Tuesday and Thursday? It's just going to totally make the whole thing very messy for the average fan.
I also wonder something else, and we've touched on this a little bit when it came to Adam Silver's comments about the NBA Europe. Is the NBA in competition with college basketball?
It kind of feels that way.
And I guess I'm not entirely sure of the answer myself, but it feels like where college basketball is right now, and we've obviously touched on this, it's never been better from a competitive standpoint. I mean, the numbers of underclassmen that have committed to the NBA draft, it's the lowest number ever. And then on top of that, the influx of international prospects. So you just have this mix of guys that maybe had previously left or gone to play in Europe. Now the money is so attractive in NIL and college space that, that there's a willingness. I think it's clear that maybe there was a point in time where like the G League was the second best league in the world, or there was European leagues that were the second best league in the world relative to the NBA. But I think we reached a point in time where college basketball, from the talent standpoint, is the second best league in the world. My question is, does the NBA want that or not? I could make the argument that it would want it because it's built-in marketing for free for the NBA. Yeah. If the NBA launches this NBA Europe, how much are they paying the players?
Right.
And is that more attractive to international players than playing professionally for another team or playing in college for another team? Because the money's not going to exceed what they're going to be able to get in those two other options. And based on the influx of talent from Europe that we're seeing, definitely not more than what you can get in college basketball. So it feels like a weird situation now where you're late to the party if you're the NBA. Like, you're late on this. You should have been positioning this a decade ago. So I guess, like, it feels like the NBA thinks they're a competition with college basketball. If I were the NBA and the NBA's offices, I would lean in as much as I possibly could to college basketball because it's marketing that you don't have to pay for. And, you know, because you have the fan bases for these colleges already built in, you know, now you have players getting to the league that are known commodities because of the time they spend in college and the fans that they have. In some ways, you might even, if you're the NBA, lean more into college in helping support what they're doing and trying to create more roster stability so that players are more known because they're playing on the same roster over multiple years. It feels like the NBA has gotten this wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you have guys that are built-in brands playing in the NBA. When they get to the NBA, they are built-in brands. Whereas when they were coming straight out of high school, that wasn't the case. Outside of the few elite prospects, like the LeBrons, the Kevin Garnetts, whoever else, the Kobes. But to your point, like, it does feel very coincidental that you have the one-and-done rule, and then now all this international talent in college basketball, Mo Krivos, Ivan Karchinkov at Arizona, would those guys rather play in NBA Europe or play at Arizona? Like, Mark Stein is reporting that the NBA is targeting the 27-28 season for NBA Europe to launch. The commissioner, Adam Silver, they have made it very clear that they want to collaborate with the EuroLeague, and they just held talks at FIBA headquarters in Switzerland. It's believed that more than 20 existing European basketball and football clubs, including teams currently in the EuroLeague, have put in bids for NBA Europe franchises.
So basically they're going to take current EuroLeague clubs and turn those into an NBA league, which will compete against each other.
They're 20 existing, and then, but I mean, it also opens up the door for expansion franchises in large markets, all of the other things that make the NBA, they can do it over there.
I'd be very curious to see what the business model looks like.
Same.
Because, again, it kind of just depends on, you know, does this give you a better option to get into the NBA if you're a European player, or does college basketball? And then how much is the money? How much money are you able to get? I again think there will be more money in college basketball, and maybe more money at the top, so more money for less of a percentage of those guys, but still more money.
And is it like an NBA? I mean, the G League was essentially created to be a minor league pipeline for the NBA. What is this? Is this a minor league pipeline style league? Are there guys that, again, to your point, what do the financial pieces look like? How much money are these guys making? What's the return for the league? There are so many unanswered questions, but it's
a good idea. Again, I think the NBA is late here. Like, again, probably should have been doing this a decade ago. Needed to be a little bit more forward-thinking, which is surprising for a league that tends to be. But we'll see. I mean, clear right now that college is in such a good way. Like, the game is so good. Now, I will say, with that being said, like, the roster fluctuation, the lack of contracts that are enforceable, like, that certainly is something that I think, you know, a lot of people are disenchanted about. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, the roster turnover is still bad, but the number of players returning to play in college, very good. A record-setting only 71 entries in the NBA draft. We'll break down the rest of the show in the final whistle. Coming up next, we've got a big event to touch on tonight.
Okay.
I want all the details. I've also got some James tips for you as we wrap up the show here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, a Wednesday edition here exclusively on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
Jack
Gets into the backfield. He'll get the carry. Bounce it left side, and now a big gain across the 40 to midfield, and still going.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by Modelo. We had Justin Williams today from The Athletic. Dropped a piece on the Sorsby investigation less than an hour ago. We also had Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, part of our interview of the day, which you can hear on replay later on this afternoon. 2:45 this afternoon Eastern, and then 4:45 this afternoon Eastern time. We also hit on our newcomer series. You can hear the replay of that at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time. We broke down earlier this month all the incoming transfers at the wide receiver position in the Big 12, which is deep. There are a ton of high-level, like productive receivers at their previous stop, and then you've got kind of a blend of like the kid from BYU who is 6'6" and a 4-star recruit, but didn't play a ton at Oregon. We also had Kat Osterman, softball legend, on the program today. So you can check all that out starting at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, right here on Big 12 Radio. But later on tonight, REI have been losing sleep over this event. You're emceeing an event tonight in the Dallas area. You told us earlier this week you couldn't make it to my SMU class because of all the prep that goes into it. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Can you give us a little sample?
Yeah, I'm excited. Half Associates is an engineering firm locally who has had quite the impact, and it's really interesting from the standpoint of, you drive on roads and probably don't think a ton about what goes into making those roads. You drink water. I'm sure there's not a ton of thought that goes into how you get that water. There's drainage systems in place. I'm sure many of us don't even realize those drainage systems. Did you know that there's entire tunnels under highways in Dallas that are drainage systems? Did you know that under 75 they've got tunnels the entire way that are used as drainage systems?
Drainage only.
Yeah. Basically, they fill up with water once it rains so that the highways don't flood. Right? It makes total sense. Did you ever think about that?
No.
So,
when you tell me tunnels under highways, I'm thinking express lanes. Yeah, we hit those up all the time.
Right. So, what I've uncovered in doing my research, about what Half Associates does is, man, there's a lot that happens in this world that we have, everybody uses and utilizes and needs, and yet we probably have no insight or even thought in what goes into that. And how much, especially with roads and highways and everything that goes into just building that stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've, pointed out flaws or thought of ways to make a highway better, and then, you look at this and how they're made, and, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know anything. Engineers probably look at me like I'm the dumbest person on earth.
So I wouldn't lead with suggestions on how to make the roads better. Sounds like they've got that part covered. So
yes. That does seem to be the case.
Well, I was driving home last night, and I was thinking about, man, how do these roads come together? So
Were you?
Yes, totally. How much did you have to research, to speak their language, to know the lingo, the road lingo?
Yeah, I still don't know. I mean, there's lots of things that I've learned about that I couldn't even tell you what it means or what even what it says.
So you have an opening monologue. What are you wearing? Let's start there.
Well, we already started.
We already started. Let's start in terms of what, concerns that I have. What are you wearing? My number one concern, the fishing shirt is a no-go. Okay, this isn't a National Geographic calendar shoot. You're emceeing an event.
What should I wear? What should I wear? I was going to wear this. Is this not appropriate?
I mean, maybe they're just as excited about the Tyron Stokes news.
They got to be stoked.
They got to be stoked about Stokes committing to Kansas.
They got to be stoked. What should I wear, Mr. GQ? Should I wear a medium shirt like you got on today? Can you get a larger shirt? You're bursting out of it. I know you're muscular. My God.
Brings me it's the same size as all the others. I don't know if this one got thrown into the dryer for an extra cycle. Trust me, I got to the studio and had the same thought.
Looks like you and
You're not alone.
Looks like you and TJ Otzelberger are shopping at the same store.
I think that's why we're bros. That's why he likes me. He's like, your shirts are just as small. Actually, might be smaller than mine.
You got like a B cup in those. You need a bra or something to contain them.
Brings me to my next point.
No, what should I wear?
What's the dress code at the event?
It's cash.
How cash?
Very cash.
Super cash?
Super duper cash.
Oh, that changes everything. I thought this was a black tie event.
No, if
I
it
had
was,
tie
that wouldn't even be.
advice.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be.
Can you wear shorts? Hawaiian shirt? Maybe you should wear the fishing shirt.
I'm gonna go with a suit and tie.
Okay, I like it.
I'm gonna be the best dressed person there.
That's it. Confidence.
Got like a navy blue tie, great shirt, got a whole suit. And, please.
Don't wear dress shoes, though. I'd wear sneakers. Rock the sneakers because you've got to have good footing up there.
Do you think I own dress shoes? These are my dress shoes. My collection of Jordans.
Those are good-looking dress shoes.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Make sure you've got good traction. You can't be slipping around up there. Do you have all the names down?
No.
Are you going to write them down, like phonetically?
Yeah.
Just going to wing it?
No. I have a sense of it. I'm gonna meet them all to get the one-on-one. Hey, how do I say that name? What's that? Is that a Y or a T sound?
You're going to crush it. You'll never forget that between the time you meet the person and you get up to introduce them. I don't see what can go wrong there.
You've heard me pronounce names before. You know how good I am at that.
Is Brendan Mott going to be in attendance? All right. So the other piece of advice I have, this could be high energy. I'm assuming the drinks might be flowing for your audience. But whatever you do, just don't dance. Don't dance.
Oh.
Don't do it.
No.
No dancing. Not even a shoulder shimmy.
Why?
I would just say that's a no-go.
Why?
Because you're a 40-year-old man. That's why. You don't need to be Bill Gates and Steve Jobs up there on stage. Okay? No dancing. It's
No
a
dancing.
hard no.
Really?
Yeah. What were you going to dance? Were you planning?
Oh, yeah. In fact, even with the advice being given, I'm going to be dancing.
Okay. All right. So that is advice that
I'll be shoulder. Yeah, look. Whether people are laughing with me or at me, that doesn't matter. I don't,
right.
Either one. Look,
what if they're not laughing
James,
at all?
I subscribe to the belief.
What if there's no laughing?
I subscribe to the belief that you're supposed to always dance like nobody's watching.
Well, they will be watching. That's the problem. They will very much be watching you.
What if they're not laughing? Well, then what the hell's the matter? Then I must dance funnier.
Okay.
And my dance must be funnier.
Got it. All right. I would just say, yeah, chest hair, see-through shirts, those are definitely no-goes.
Well, probably post-award show, once the tie comes out, that's when the shirt gets unbuttoned.
Yeah, post-awards show, when your job is done,
all bets are off.
All bets are off. These rules no longer apply. You dance your heart out.
Do I do a Modelo during the performance and presentation? Maybe 2, just to, maybe take the edge off?
Yeah, I think that's okay, right? Everybody else is? I don't know.
Would you?
No, I wouldn't.
No, I'm a pro. No, absolutely not.
No.
But you've never been asked to MC an event, have you?
That's not true. I've MC'd several.
Okay. Most recently?
I'm trying to think, what was the most recent thing I MC'd? I feel like I did something with college students last year. Was that last spring?
Yeah, it's the class that you
No,
taught
it wasn't the
at
class.
SMU.
It was after class. It was something they brought me in for.
This is like the, I've got a girlfriend at a different school. Yeah. Oh, no, I can't even remember all the MCing I've done.
That's it. Because I could also remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I think you need a go-to line. Your go-to line, if things get, a little stuffy or, maybe a brain fart, just give it up for yourselves. Followed by a very aggressive clap. Just
Everybody
give it
here,
up for yourselves.
just give it up for yourself.
Rhodes. Great job, guys.
I thought about opening my monologue with the classic line from Back to the Future.
Okay.
Where we're going, we won't need roads.
That's it. Yeah, just downplay their entire profession. We won't need roads? No.
Start with. Here's the other one I was
worried about the fishing shirt. You're
Yeah.
going to lead with, hey, your jobs are obsolete here in the next. No, don't do that.
No, it was meant to be look what the next frontier is. Soon you're going to have to build roads in the sky for the flying cars we have and won't need roads for. The other one I was going to go with is my favorite quote from George Bernard Shaw, which I think you'll appreciate. And that is that the reasonable man bends to the world, the unreasonable man bends the world to him. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man.
Dude, that's a banger. Just don't stumble like you did just now. If you can do that clean with perfect articulation, that's an A-plus line.
Are you, James Westling, an unreasonable or reasonable man?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Just condense that puppy. Shorten it up. Way less to remember.
Because I'd say one of the two of us is unreasonable. The other one is very reasonable.
Totally. Yeah, just consolidate everything. What could go wrong? How many people are going to be at this thing?
Hundreds, thousands, millions even. I don't know. Hundreds. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hundreds.
All right.
Wish me luck.
Dude, you're going to crush it. For real.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know you are.
I have no... The only skill set that I have is talking into a microphone. Turning it on, no. That's well beyond my capabilities.
Is this on?
Yeah, turning it on.
Give him one of those.
Doing anything technical. Really doing anything other than talking to a microphone.
Yeah.
It's pretty much my only skill set.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't
You can
work,
attest to that.
Don't panic. You'll be fine. Okay? All right. Cannot wait for the update
I just start
tomorrow.
screaming.
And then they just flip it on.
Can anybody hear me?
Mid-scream, they're like, oh, it's working now. Shock them out of their shoes. Good stuff. All right, we will do it again tomorrow. Will be in for Taman. For Anthony behind the scenes on the video side. He's Ari, I'm James. Ari Timken, James Westling. We're back tomorrow, 8 to 11 a Eastern time. But for now, we are out of here.
Peace.